George Brockler with you on Hump Day, first day of a brand new month. It's February. It's always a good day to start a diet when it's the first day of the month. I'm going to try that. Unfortunately, that doesn't extend to my breakfast sandwich that I made via a device. I'm sure we'll talk about this later in the show, but Billy turned me on to this ridiculous sandwich maker. Frankly, listen, by the time we talk about this, the audience will have turned over. You should just know there's a wonderful sandwich maker out there that we have talked briefly about, and it's become a little bit like crack for me.
It's tough. Once you start doing it, it's really good. We'll talk more about it later, but yeah.
I try not to eat breads because what I figured out is when I was in Iraq is if you cut out the unnecessary carbs, and that includes things like bread and chips, then it's easier to drop some of those unwanted pounds. Unfortunately, this ridiculous sandwich maker requires some type of a bun, some type of a bread thing. In this case, it's an English muffin, which I haven't eaten in decades. And now it's like crack, Billy. Yeah, I went to the store on the way home yesterday to buy English muffins, and I'm just and the kids now. Anyway, I'm sure we'll end up talking more about it. I don't necessarily want to dwell on that in the first segment, but holy smokes! As for the weather, you may have heard the prognosticators make their predictions on this thing. I have to say, looking back over the last 3 days, and you know that I am one to try to hold the meteorologists. Some people say when I say it, it sounds like urologists, to hold them accountable. But the last 3 days, they have been remarkably consistent-ish. And what I mean by that is if you look back to Monday, these folks predicted that Friday would be 45 degrees. And then the next day, they went up 8 degrees and said, actually, we're wrong. It's 53 degrees. Well, here we are the following day, and they've adjusted it down 1 degree. So today we're looking at a high of 38. Yesterday, they predicted we'd be looking at a high of 38. So nailed it, I guess, at least as far as they're not willing to change. The following day, they're within 1 degree. And then as you move on throughout the weekend and get into the week, honestly, they're remarkably consistent except for Monday. And so Monday, they thought that Saturday and Sunday would be 42 degrees each. Today, they say, nope, we're adjusting it upward to 47 and 48 degrees. That ain't bad, folks. That is really not that bad. And I really am going to take credit for this large consistency because I know that once we had our interview with Channel 7's great Lisa Hidalgo, she probably listens to the podcast and she realizes that her career's on the line here. And that if she isn't more accurate and more consistent, somehow this show is going to bring the entire industry to a screeching halt, and she'll have to go back to fast food. She don't want to do that.
No, she doesn't. And I remember when I reached out to several other weather people in the market, the first answer I got back from them is, "Wait, you're reading those things?" So again, I think this is a change. This is a good thing.
We still need to get some more of those weather people on there. I can't remember all the channels we've had. We've had 9. Which has been great. We've had 7. Did we get anybody from 4 yet?
No, not yet. I'll reach out to 4 again. Yeah, I'll reach out to 4.
And I am in email contact with the big man from KDVR, so hopefully we can make that happen. My thought, though, is dude doesn't roll out of bed until noon. No offense. And I'm
jealous.
Because he's up at the 10 o'clock hour prancing around in front of a green screen pointing at triangles and stuff. So
that's an underrated skill. That is a real underrated skill. The fact that you do the thing here and they're pointing to the stuff that's not there and they've got to look at the monitor and know because it's flipped and so well, it's a decent skill.
In preparation for tomorrow, Graham, who I think is the only kid that hadn't seen it thus far, the other day while we were driving around, Graham had on his little phone, I convinced him to watch Groundhog Day with Bill Murray and Andy McDowell. And again, a great movie. I mean, it's underrated. I don't know how it did at the box office 30 years ago, but it was great. And that's how he's a meteorologist. I'd forgotten he's a weatherman that gets tasked to go out and do the Punxsutawney Phil thing.
Yeah, to see the giant rat. It's great.
And what folks don't know is that Billy and I are going to do a remote from Punxsutawney tomorrow. I don't know that Salem knows that, but we had planned on that.
Yeah, we have. It's a road trip.
It's a road trip. We're going to get Tom's RV.
Yeah.
And we're going to load up into it. I don't think Tom knows that either.
No, he doesn't.
And we have to leave really during the show if we're going to make it on time. So if you hear dead air, folks, or at least this radio show being done from a cell phone, you'll know exactly what happened.
That's why, because this is the commitment we have to you, the listener.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to go see the Punxsutawney Phil thing at least once?
I think it's just an excuse to drink at 8 in the morning. That's all I think it is.
One of the best texts yesterday was about Puxatawny Phil. It was from
Yeah.
our friend of the show, Alexa. And she said, do you remember when de Blasio dropped the groundhog and it died?
Yes, I do remember that.
Oh, my good Lord.
That should have been a warning.
Things
that he touched dies.
It's also foreshadowing for de Blasio's time as mayor.
Oh, it's good.
Speaking of texts that come in, you can reach out to us at any time during the show by going to the 710 KNUS app or on 710knus.com. The app's so convenient. I don't know why you wouldn't just download that thing. The show sounds better on the app as well. But you can text us. I get the texts all the time. And I respond to, I got to say, about 3/4 of them I get a chance to respond to. Some of them aren't built for responses. Some of them, honestly, they're not helpful. A response wouldn't matter. It's just someone screaming in the abyss. But I try to respond to, and I read a bunch of them on air, as you know. So that's one great way to get a hold of us and stay in touch. The other way, of course, is my fave, which is the telephone, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. And the other thing we're doing right now, and I think we're in month, I don't know, is it 1, 2? I don't buckle my shoe. I don't know. But we do a YouTube thing. In fact, we have a staff guy that makes sure that the video runs the whole time, which is disappointing because as you found out yesterday from watching the show, sometimes I lose sight of that and I attempt to disrobe by taking off a sweatshirt.
I know.
And it isn't smooth. I hadn't practiced the move. I
will say we got several monetary donations wanting to know if we can have that as a feature. And they were just saying they tip. So, sadly, we could add some lights and we could add some music.
All dudes.
And yeah, exactly.
And then there was also a lot of texts that said, please don't ever do that again.
Yes. I was eating.
And I don't want to do it again, honestly, unless there's money involved. And just so you know. So maybe we can start a GoFundMe page.
Exactly.
And it can be called the GoFundMe Stay Dressed page.
Yes, exactly.
Or something. And we'll do that.
And if we don't get it, if we don't reach the donation goals each and every week, then you disrobe with one article of clothing the following week. So it's a threat.
Strip radio?
Yeah, exactly. It's a threat. It's like, you're going to see more of this if you don't send the money.
Yeah, it's going to be Nipple Thursday, folks,
exactly.
if you guys don't come up with another couple of grand. Maybe that's what we say for we have to reach a certain number of subscribers on YouTube, or the station has threatened just simply shutting it all down.
Yeah.
And so
I don't think that would help.
I think we're close to it. The YouTube channel lives on without us.
Yeah.
It'll just be filming an empty chair.
Yeah.
Which many folks, I think, have secretly hoped for.
We have that suggestion.
But if you go out to the YouTube, and as you know, when you're over 50, you put the in front of every social media thing out there. So the Twitter, the Instagram. So go out to the YouTube and search for The George Show or 710 KNUS, and you get us right here. Now, once we eclipse a certain number of subscribers, and I'm begging you to do it, then there's real talk that they'll expand the video thing to a guy named Stefan Tubes, and also our own, everybody's favorite, Deborah Flora, who covers on the 3 to 4 slot. I think you want to see that. I think, one, just the idea that Stefan has to make a decision about personal hygiene before he comes into the studio that's life altering. He's never had to do that before.
And he could mock him for all of his Padres hats.
Oh,
just
he's going to lose subscribers, and we're going to drop below the 1,000, and then it becomes job killing. We just can't have that. No. Couple big things in the news I wanted to talk about in this first segment, and I know you know them well. One, it looks a whole lot like the Broncos just nailed themselves a coach.
Yes, they did. In fact, let's go to the NFL Network.
Sean Payton is getting back in the NFL coaching game, teaming up with Russell Wilson as the Broncos' next head coach. I want to welcome in our NFL Network insiders, Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport. Guys, I'll start with Sean Payton. What more can you tell us about this deal?
Yeah, a complex deal that really has been in the works for several days, kind of under the cover of darkness, but the Denver Broncos have now agreed to terms with the New Orleans Saints for compensation to complete the trade of Sean Payton. And what it is the New Orleans Saints receive a first rounder and a second rounder for Sean Payton, and a third rounder going back. So essentially a first rounder and a pick swap now need to finalize a deal. With Sean Payton, which should really be no issue. This is going to happen. Sean Payton now expected to be the Denver Broncos head coach. But Mike, this was not a straight arrow for the Denver Broncos. Listen to what they did. First of all, they targeted DeMeco Ryans as their top choice. Mm-hmm. Then it was clear that was not going to happen. He was going to go to the Texans. Then they flew to Ann Arbor to try to get Jim Harbaugh and convince him to be the coach. Then today, when we all thought they were zeroing in on Sean Payton, they made another run at DeMeco Ryans, failed there, and now go back to Sean Payton.
Oh, jeez.
If you're Sean Payton,
Yeah.
are you okay being thirds? I mean, are you
think
okay with? And I imagine for $17 to $20 million a year, I'd be happy to
don't
be
care.
the third choice.
Yeah, I would too.
In fact, even as someone's spouse, I'm happy to figure
For that
out a
money,
way
yeah.
for $17 to $20 million a year. I think I could be married to Governor Polis.
Yeah.
I mean,
me
I'd
too.
be totally down with it.
I would too.
And again, in no way is that an offer, Governor. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I know you're happily married, and I encourage you to stay that way. I'm just saying, for 17 to 20 million bucks, you could pretty much ask me to do just about anything.
Yeah, I looked at that one and I kept thinking when they were talking about it, it was like Ian Rappaport doing the thing where guys like walking around the campus going, will you go to the dance with me? How about you? You're pretty. Did you go to the dance with me?
And you know what? And they're
no.
they're all three standing next to each other. Would you
Yes,
like to
exactly.
dance?
Yeah.
No. Would
No.
you like to
Yeah.
dance? No.
No.
How about you?
Yeah.
You know,
And then
and
you go back to the first one. How about are you
yeah,
sure?
right. But you look
Yeah.
to the third one,
Yeah.
which is Sean Payton, and then you go back to
Yeah.
the first one and go,
How about you?
are you sir pretty please? I mean, we're begging.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm
No,
going to Texas.
Have you seen me do the cabbage patch?
Right.
No. Yeah.
I saw your midterm elections. I'm not coming to Colorado.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, that's crazy. Listen, Texter, guys from Fox 31 invite Kylie Bierce to come in studio. The YouTube audience will spike its numbers. She is much better looking than Dave Frazier.
I like how you think. That is a bonus.
And in no knock
Yeah.
to Kylie, Dave's a sharp dressed guy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing to dislike about that packaging. So, but you know what? I think you've just been given an assignment by the listeners, Billy. It's time to
Alrighty.
reach out to Kylie Bierce, who
And
has
again,
a.
I have to do this nicely because otherwise it goes in that stalker realm.
And by the way, I'm
I want
certain.
to know if I can
I'm
film
certain
you.
KDVR will deny the in studio, but maybe this
Yeah.
is our chance to figure out how to do that Zoom split screen thing that we've
Yeah.
been threatening people with
Yeah.
now.
I hear the rumor that over there at 2 and 31 they have cameras. And
What?
maybe those cameras can connect to the internet, and maybe we could share a feed.
Oh man, that would be
it's just a
brilliant.
rumor. I don't know.
That
And
would be
technology
the-
confuses me.
That'd be the
so,
best
yeah.
new interview style for the show
It would
because
be.
doing the phone call thing is
Yeah.
okay, but honest to God, the sound is so much better on the Zoom or the WhatsApp
Yeah.
or any of those things. The sound is just a little bit better on those calls. So it'll be interesting if we can pull that off. Thank you, Texter. And this is what I mean.
Yeah, good point.
Texters text in, we read it, we consider it, we take it as an action item, and
Yeah.
we move forward. Now, the concern I have on the Sean Payton thing is
Yeah.
one, obviously the guy's a
What do you think?
proven coach, 17 years with the Saints. He's got a Super Bowl win. He's been successful. But keep in mind, too, that dude had Drew Brees. And much like Russell Wilson, remember, Drew was rejected by the Chargers,
Yeah.
cut loose, and he found new life, and I mean Hall of Fame life with the Saints. The test for the Broncos next year will be, if Russell Wilson still sucks, we know it wasn't the coach. Like right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I need it to be Nathaniel Hackett because I want to believe we didn't just, forgive the term here, piss away 3 years of our future on Russell Wilson.
Yeah. This can't be the Herschel Walker part 2. We can't.
No.
do that. Yeah.
No.
No.
And so if Sean Payton can create an environment where Russell Wilson can have a much more Peyton Manning-like second year, I think we're all going to be thrilled. But we've given away almost the entire draft. That's what it sounds like. A first here, a second here, a third there, another first here. Between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, I don't even think we show up for the draft for 2 years.
I don't think so. And the problem you've got is you miss out on those young kids that have the easy contracts for the budget. And then you're probably forced in some of those skill positions to rebuild through free agency, which means overpaying. Universally in free agency, you overpay for the talent. And so this is going to be a little difficult. I for one, I'm surprised that Sean Payton came because I thought there was no way he was going to, given a couple months ago. There was an interview where he talked about, he didn't say that he didn't like the Broncos, but I felt like he was throwing out breadcrumbs saying, no, I don't want to go to the Broncos. Don't want to go to the Broncos. And the one that really caught me was where he talked about, well, if I when I coach again, I want to have Vic Fangio as my defensive coordinator. And I went, ew. I can't imagine Vic coming to Denver going, I was the head coach. Now I'm the defensive coordinator. I can't imagine that move that he would jump at that offer. So as soon as Payton said that, I felt that was a line in the sand saying, no Bronco, no touchy.
Yeah.
But I guess, again, just like with you and me have discussed, 17 million a race is a lot of lines in the sand.
Oh my gosh.
A whole lot of lines in the sand. A whole lot of moral lines as well. Yeah. And ethical lines.
17 to 20 million dollars.
Million a year.
That's
Just-
so much money.
Yeah. It's
I mean, it
mind-boggling.
feels like I might have to go back and take a look. It feels like Aaron Judge money. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is the greatest home run hitter in the history of the American League. So I hope Sean Payton is the greatest home run hitting football coach, if you'll forgive me mashing up those things, in the NFL. I mean, the other thing too is if you're Sean Payton, you've got to look at the Broncos' performance over the last couple of years and think, I'm coming in at the great spot, right?
Yeah.
Like even if I end the season next year 8-8, I'm a hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Or 8-9 or 9-8. I have made them a better team. If he can get us into the playoffs, even the wild card, the dude is like a Jesus of football or something, because I mean, it's incredible, the turnaround. So no pressure on him. Honest to God, really no pressure, because he gets to have a season where they continue to flounder and he can go, you saddled me with the old man behind center. We need someone different.
Yeah, we got to do something else here. We got to,
pretty sweet setup. What you don't want to do is you don't want to follow the Chiefs head coach in. Because you got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and you guys are 5-time AFC hosting the next season, not making it to the AFC Conference Championship. You are a huge loser. This is a much better situation to come into.
Yeah, this is a good situation. He has only the opportunity to go up or the opportunity to completely ruin his reputation. So
for $17 to $20 million a year. Dude could do the entire game naked for 17, and nobody would. I mean, he wouldn't care.
No.
The other news, and we may end up talking about this later in the show too. It's a big one, and that is the presidential field for the GOP nomination has just grown. It sounds like, or it's going to grow by one, and that is because former United States ambassador to the United Nations, and that's Donald Trump's pick to be the United States ambassador to the United Nations, and former governor of South Carolina. Very, very popular governor, Nikki Haley, is set to announce later on in February, apparently like mid-February, the Ides, if you will, of February, that she is going to run for president of the United States. That, I don't know if that's a canary in the coal mine for what's going on with the Republican Party and the Trump folks. He still tops most of the polls out there within the Republican ranks, but it is something. That is not something you would have predicted a year or two ago if you thought Trump was going to run again, that you would think most big name Republicans would have sat this out. Not Nikki Haley. And you wonder if this isn't going to be like the little Dutch boy pulling his finger out of the dike. And then all of a sudden we get Nikki Haley, and then we get Ron DeSantis, and then we get fill in the blank. We get Larry Hogan all these different people start coming into this race. I don't know.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And I'm surprised that, honestly, Haley is number 2 into the race, that she's jumping in. I'm wondering what she sees. What internals does she have that she views Trump as being weak enough that she can make a strong run at the nomination? The other part is, if I'm on the Trump camp, I'm worried. This really worries me, and here's the reason why. Donald Trump is a counterpuncher, but it's really tough at this point to hit the woman. And he can't come out. Yeah.
Now, for you and I and every other man out there listening to the show,
fair enough.
That's true.
Yeah.
But this is the guy who said about the paid prostitute that he had sex with, he had no problems just coming out and saying horse face and all sorts of. And when he talks about Megyn Kelly and she has blood coming out of her eyes and other places.
Oh, yeah.
There is no floor for this guy.
Well, and the thing is, what I'm saying with that is that I think that because Haley's in, if he does his usual, nicknames and starts attacking the opponent, I think that is going to end up being a negative for him, because he is going to be looked at as picking on the woman in the race, at least, and I'm saying externally. For the, really deep politics people, they understand what's going on and they know Donald Trump, but on the surface level, it's going to look bad for those semi-engaged voters. It's going to look bad, and I think that's a real problem. I would have been, if Rick Scott jumps in, if you get Rubio, you get DeSantis, you get someone like that in. That's good for Trump, because that's someone he can go after. Nikki Haley takes something different strategically, I think.
I bet you he says something today, and I say that because he can't help himself. And two, Ron DeSantis was an acolyte of sorts. In fact, Trump, and maybe rightfully so, claims that but for my endorsement, DeSantis doesn't win the GOP nomination or the governorship. That may be true. Haley was his U.S. ambassador pick. This is a big guy on the loyalty train, right? Like anything you do that isn't bend the knee, kiss the ring stuff, you are disloyal, and now you are dead to me. And not quite dead to me, because I'm going to continue to stomp on your grave. That's one thing. Also, the other news of the day, going back to football, it looks like TB12 is cutting out, man, of football forever, which
Some of us argue that he did that earlier in the season. He's already
I
retired.
thought he was going to try to play till 45, but
Yeah.
or maybe 50 or something. I mean, the dude is ageless. And I don't know if it's the avocado toast as his cheat meal or whatever else he's putting into his body. But this dude is playing football at a time when most of the football quarterbacks out there have been in broadcasting for 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's still throwing it. I mean, that's crazy.
I'm curious him. And again, I would really love to have a personal conversation with him, because in the last year and a half, he's gone from retiring to coming back to having his marriage fall apart and now going back to retiring. This coming 12 months for him is going to be really difficult, because he's going to go through a lot of changes. And I've known a number of professional athletes, especially NFL players, and they universally have said it is incredibly hard to walk away from the game, even if you have a TV analyst job or anything else lined up, because of the preparation, because of the camaraderie, because of the cycle of what you're involved in this game, that it becomes really difficult to define yourself outside of the game, even if you are a successful athlete, that it becomes tough, because so much of your personality and who you were was tied up in that performance of the game. And now, instead of Tom Brady being the great NFL quarterback, he is now the former NFL quarterback. And that title of former has been very difficult for many professional athletes to deal with.
I undeniably, outside of Patrick Mahomes playing for another 15 years at the level he's played at, ain't nobody going to touch his records. I mean, there's just no way out of longevity. By the way, a lot of texts coming in. Thank you. There is a topic that I want to discuss with our 7 o'clock guest, and I'll reveal who that is after our next segment.
Cool.
And it's about something that took place at the State Central Committee yesterday. But there's also a texter who just quickly texted in, bash Trump time again, bye. I'll be honest with you. If you think anything I said was, 1, not factual, call in and correct me on my statement of facts about President Trump. But 2, it feels like there's still a group of people out there for whom any criticism, even fact-based criticism about the former president, is enough to go bury your head in the sand and be like, la, 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 this is still Trump's America. I'm sorry. That's you're right. You should turn the station, because I've got my own feelings about it. Again, I'll concede I voted for this guy twice, and if he ends up becoming the Republican nominee, I'm going to vote for him a third time, especially given the alternative. But this isn't Trump Kool-Aid drinking radio, folks. There's radio like that, but I'm just not going to do it. And then here's the text response. No, I like criticism, but that is all I hear from you regarding Trump. Maybe something positive. How about a Biden criticism hour? It's just crazy the way it has to be this sort of all politics all the time, where you must say so. This is like Republican radio. Like, this station exists just for Republican causes, and not just Republican causes, Trump causes. That's not my marching orders, folks. My marching orders is fill 4 hours of time and get listeners and talk about things that people want to talk about. I get it, man. If you feel like this has to be, let's just bash Biden all day or praise Trump, you are listening to the wrong show. That is just, there are options out there like that. You ain't going to get that with me. You haven't so far. You won't in the future. And then the other thing is this topic with what took place regarding the El Paso County chair. That's the one we'll talk about with our 7 o'clock guest, and I'll reveal more about that in a moment. But let's do this. Let's cut away for a break and get to the real fun of the show. In fact, it's the most produced part. It's the reward for getting up early and listening to the 6 o'clock hour, or if you will, listening to the 6 o'clock hour on the podcast in the future. And that is the You Choose the News. And of course, before that, the Thorpe Report. We'll get to that in just 1 second. Stick around. It's George Brockman on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
George Brocker back with you here on 710 KNUS. True to my word, right before we went to break, if you believe I've made a misstatement somehow in the 30 seconds that we spoke about President Trump, call in, and we've got callers with guts, and that's what I like right here on 710. Frank, you're on the George Show. What do you think, Frank?
Well, you mistakenly said it was Megyn Kelly. It was actually the lady was it Mika from Morning Joe? She had nose surgery or something. Yeah.
Well, listen,
he's a pretty crude
hang
guy.
on, Frank.
Yeah.
He may have ripped on Mika Brzezinski. I don't remember that, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that the quotes I attributed to the president about Megyn Kelly are accurate. In fact, I think we may have even found the sound. Billy?
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. She was off base.
There was
That is President Trump talking about Megyn Kelly right after the Fox debate
Okay.
that she was on.
I guess I missed that one. He also said that something like that about Mika from.
I didn't
Morning
know
Joe, right?
that. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I could be wrong.
Well, we'll take a
I'll,
look, but I think what you're highlighting here is my point, and that is, Billy was thinking that it would be hard for Trump to criticize Nikki Haley because of the woman thing, and I'm like, he has never resisted throwing punches at women.
Here's the difference. Nikki Haley is a real professional.
She is true.
Yeah, and Mika from Morning Joe is a dope. Megyn Kelly is a real professional as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Megyn was attacking him, and he attacked back.
That's right.
And you think Trump can't win, and I think Trump's the only guy who can win, because the middle, which is what we're fighting for here.
Yeah.
They want to see a rumble in the jungle. That's what they want. We're not going to convince.
Why do you say
Democrats
that, Frank?
to vote.
What gives you that indication that that's what they want to see is more like in the gutter street brawl?
Well, it's not completely street brawl. Rumble in the Jungle actually had refs and all that stuff. But the thing is, with it's just because we're tired. We're tired of, number one, Republicans saying they're going to do all this stuff and not doing it. We're tired of
Who's we,
things
Frank?
like you were talking about.
Frank, who are you talking about?
Well, I'm independent, or I guess unaffiliated, I guess technically.
Why?
But why am I unaffiliated?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't voted for a Democrat since Jimmy Carter, but I don't. The Republicans just disappoint me all the time. Just like with this, I dumped the Republicans at George Bush when he went into
The first one?
Junior.
Okay.
W. And even though I think he did some good things, I also think that if we had not gone into Iraq, the world would be a much different place in so many ways. We'd be in Fat City today. And that was his mistake. He's got to own it. And that's why I left the Republicans.
But
But
you
it
haven't
doesn't
stopped
change
voting
the-
for them.
That's correct. And like you, whoever the Republican is, I'm going to vote for,
Yep.
because the other option is
it's
the
worse.
Communist Party of
Yeah,
America.
so much worse. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And
So, but I still think the only path to winning is somebody who's going to get down and rumble in the jungle. Now they're talking about Michelle Obama running, right? And every Democrat on the planet's going to vote for her.
No doubt. No doubt.
And a lot of people in the middle will, because she's a black woman, and but here's the thing. I vote for competence when I see a Republican. I vote for Democrats don't have that concept. They don't have any concept of what competence is. What has Michelle Obama ever done in her life? What has Joe Biden done in his life besides fail at everything he's tried and rip off the American taxpayer for 50 years? Democrats don't care. If he's a Democrat, they're voting for him. No, competence does not come into the decision process. And Trump,
my great
like
worry,
not.
Frank, is that President Trump, for all the good that he did in office, has never, ever, never gotten 50% of the vote. And so I don't know why we think that he's going to get 50% of the vote in this next election. And the things that I worry about are whatever it was that gave him that mojo, that I'm not a politician appeal, especially to blue collar folks in 2016. I just don't know if it has the same impact 8 years later. It just feels like at least the campaign he's launched so far. And again, you can never count this guy out. Never. I mean, people have been underestimating him since he jumped in the race to their peril. So I'm not going to do that. But I just worry about the fact that this guy might close the deal with the Republican Party, but he cannot close the deal with America.
We disagree on that. I think if he wins the nomination, which that's going to be a fight too, he's the only one that's got a shot at winning. George, I don't discount what you say because you're a smart guy. That's why I listen to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And by the way, thank you for your service too.
Thanks for paying taxes, man.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure.
Well, I was going to talk about that story too. We might get to that, but there's a new report out from the Tax Foundation analyzing some recently released IRS data that shows that we taxpayers are a dwindling group. I mean, we are a smaller portion of America. So my thanks is legit. It sounds funny, but it is legit. Thank you for paying taxes. Because as you know, man, no taxes, no military. That's just how it works.
Well, you know, in my conservative view, there's only 2 or 3 things our government should be doing. One is keeping us safe, i.e. the military.
Yeah.
And, you know, border security and anything associated with security. The other thing is protecting our economy, making sure that foreign forces don't trash our economy, and even internal forces. I mean, right now our biggest problem is internal forces. You know, so
it's so funny you bring that up because there was a poll yesterday that Billy's like, hey, maybe we talk about this, where there's a growing percentage of Americans who say that the number one problem in America right now is government leadership or the lack thereof. I mean, Frank, you kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in current events. Let me do this though, Frank. I don't want to derail the entire first segment because, you know, I make these promises to the listeners like you, like I am going to let Billy have his way with them through the Thorpe Report and You Choose the News. But this has been a good, meaningful conversation. And I appreciate you calling in to try to focus me on the facts on the Trump thing. I'm going to look up that Mika Brzezinski thing and see if we can't find some sound on that. I don't remember that one. I only remember the Megyn Kelly one, probably because I watched that Fox News debate.
The Mika thing was on Twitter, so there's no audio there.
There's no audio on that?
And he was talking about plastic surgery and nose jobs and stuff like that. So there's no audio. There's audio of Mika responding, but there's no audio of Trump saying anything because it was a Twitter thing.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Listen, Frank, thank you for the call and calling again, would you?
I stand corrected.
Thanks, sir. Talk to you soon. Hey, that's Frank. I love the callers. We take the callers. We take tons of texts coming in right now. Keep that thing going. Here's what I want to do, though. I want to quickly tell you about something awesome that's going on, but then I want to give as much time as I can to Billy on the back end of this thing so that we can get the good part of the show out of the way before we head into the 7 o'clock hour. And then, honestly, then we get a fantastic guest, and I'll reveal that in a moment. But I want to tell you that as a veteran and as a former top prosecutor, you know, I was the DA for about 1.1 million Coloradans. That's the biggest thing going by a ton, 45% more populous than Denver. I know what it takes for folks to feel safe, and including in their home, and what security means to folks. And so I want to invite you to the Tanner Gun Show this weekend at the Crown Plaza. That's where you're going to get to have the best options at home protection. And you have the subject matter experts all over this place and knowledgeable gun vendors. And as long as we're still in a state that even though they're struggling to find a way to rip away your Second Amendment rights and limit them with this whole ridiculous notion of local control over a constitutional right, go to the Tanner Gun Show. You're looking for people that think like you, feel like you, and believe like you when it comes to things like the Second Amendment and self-defense and protection. Now's the time to act. This legislature, folks, you know, is coming for your guns. You 100% know that they haven't dropped that semi-automatic ban bill yet, but it is coming. It is going to happen. And so jump on this opportunity while you can. They've got all sorts of the guns, knives, ammo, AR accessories, hunting supplies, concealed carry classes, which you got to have. Just a ton of great stuff. You're going to like it. Prices 30% less than the big box stores. You got to do this thing. It's this Friday from 3 to 7, Saturday from 9 to 5, and Sunday from 10 to 4. Go flex your Second Amendment rights by going to the Tanner Gun Show. You can check them out at tannergunshow.com, or you can also buy tickets at the door. The cool thing is, parking always free at the Crown Plaza. Go to that gun show. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out there too in between 8 billion kids sporting events, but this is the thing to go to. I'm going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back. It'll be all Billy all day long. All segment long. George Brockler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brocker back with you on 710 KNUS. Sometimes I tell Billy no when he says, hey, we're back on the radio. It's a flashback to the Anchorman opening sequence. You're on the air. I don't believe you. We're going to turn it over right now. Billy, I don't know if you can do this. I don't know if 8 minutes is enough time. I'd be happy to try this later on in the show, but I think we have to give it a college try.
Yeah, we do. Let's see what we can do. Good morning, sir. Now, January is going to finish as Denver's overall coldest month since 2009, city's coldest January since 2007, and will finish as the city's snowiest January since 2014 and the 16th snowiest on record. Through Monday, Denver had an average month-to-date temperature of about 25 degrees. That's more than 6 degrees below our average. Elsewhere, an arrest has been made after an 18-year-old was shot and killed during carjacking at a Loveland apartment complex, the Loveland Police Department announced yesterday. Excel customers who have seen their bills double or even triple were speaking out at a Public Utilities Commission meeting yesterday about affordability. They complained about their gas bills going up 80% just in this winter season alone. Jeanette Neubauer said, my bill 2 months ago was $131. A month ago, it was $331. It just arrived in the mail for this month. It's $481. Someone has to explain some stuff. Customers complained about high energy bills, recent rate increases approved by the PUC, and natural gas rate increases that include reimbursing Excel dollar for dollar for the price of natural gas.
Buddy, this month's utilities is like 10% of our mortgage. Like,
it's ridiculous.
What the what?
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. One of the questions I had was people were asking the PUC, have you ever denied a rate increase? That might be important. You might want to talk
and they're
about
going
that.
back into the papyrus to try to find if they've ever said no.
Yeah, so that's a problem here. It's a weird thing that with the public utilities, when you and I are forced to make choices in far how we spend things and adjusting our budget, they then ask, can we have a larger budget? Boy, do I wish I could do that one. Hesitate to act. Those three simple words, according to defense attorneys, for decades have provided critical protection here in Colorado for defendants, but those words are now erased from the state's jury instructions. As most people know, prosecutors have to prove their case, as George knows, beyond a reasonable doubt.
I've heard that term before.
Yeah, just in general. And until very recently, reasonable doubt was defined in Colorado as a doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate to act in matters of importance to themselves.
I've heard that a billion times.
It's such a long sentence. Late last week, the Colorado Supreme Court redefined proof beyond a reasonable doubt, leaving out the words hesitate to act. The definition now says proof that leaves you firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. What do you think about that? Help or hurt?
Yeah, listen, I know what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is to come up with a more common sense way, a more accessible way for people to understand it. But the part that, and I don't know if this is in your story, that has pissed a lot of people off is they invited comment and input from nobody.
What?
This was just judges got together, didn't ask any DAs what they thought, didn't ask any defense attorneys or public defenders what they thought, just sat down and said, we know what's best.
Ooh.
And again, it just adds to this sense that the judiciary is sort of in this ivory tower and they're the elites over there dictating the rest to the participants. The public defenders hate it. I think DAs kind of feel like, this is probably a step in the right direction because honest to God, I can't tell you what reasonable doubt is. And I've only been doing this just shy of 30 years. I have no clue what reasonable doubt is. If people go back into the room and look at each other and go, dude did it, that's beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, it is. I think it's going to be interesting. But I had no idea they didn't ask for any public comment. And speaking of segments in which we get no public comment, it is time for us to waste some time playing this ridiculous You Choose the News radio game show. Yes, everybody all across, well, at least in the office, loves the game, and you too. So we are here to play You Choose the News. We have scoured the interwebs for ridiculous stories, put stupid headlines on them, and today we are sponsored by, our very own Denver Broncos. They have a special commemorative item for you with our new head coach being announced. We'll talk about that in just a minute because first, we must play You Choose the News. Alrighty, sir, here are your headline choices today. Headline number 1, hide and stay away. Headline number 2, cleanliness is caring, or Sherlock Bone. Headline number 3, making it more difficult to do your duty. And headline number 3, shark bait gaming. I'm glad you laughed.
As always, I'm going with the bone, my friend.
Yes. Thank you so much. We are going with headline number 2, cleanliness is caring, or Sherlock Bone. Here we are going to revisit the story of young Pamela Anderson. You remember the actress that is famous for marrying Tommy Lee Jones and also being on Baywatch? Well, she has a brand new Netflix documentary that is being released called Pamela, a love story. She explains that early on, when she graduated from school, she went on a ferry, got to Vancouver, and eventually met somebody and moved in with them. Then she found out he was stepping out on her. Yes, he was cheating on the beautiful Pamela Anderson. How did she know? She saw him washing his junk in the sink.
No, what?
Yes, she says when you see your boyfriend washing his in the sink, it's a sign they're probably having an affair. In fact, Pamela says she's always kept a diary and she can still remember what she wrote down on that particular day. And I quote, she says, I wrote washing penis in sink suspicious.
No, this isn't.
It is real. Yes,
this is exactly why I engage in no personal hygiene ever. I don't ever want to be accused of that.
So I just think that's hilarious that she's like, yeah, he was up there washing, and I'm just like, the angle, and you couldn't washcloth. I just, their baby wipes. I don't know. It just seems like poor planning.
Like, just that awkward conversation. Hi, hun, what you doing?
Yeah, what you doing?
There was an odor, and I felt like I should address that. Jesus, Billy, where do you find these ridiculous stories? Oh my God.
My history is very bad.
Good luck.
Now, your next choice this morning: hide and stay away, making it more difficult to do your duty, or shark bait gaming.
Shark bait.
Shark bait gaming. We're traveling all the way to Japan for this one and meeting a man who was playing Nintendo Switch live online. Well, the Nintendo Switch froze for a minute, so he got up and decided to go to the bathroom and make himself a snack. However, his fish that was there with him continued to play the game. For somehow the Nintendo Switch continued to recognize the movement of the fish and started to respond. The fish actually went ahead and during the next 7 hours while it was sitting there and it live streamed the entire time, the fish managed to change the name of the owner's Switch account, then logged into the Nintendo store. It then checked the legal terms and conditions, set up a new avatar, and set up a PayPal account from the Switch, and then managed to spend about $4. So,
is this the incredible Mr. Limpet?
I have no idea. But yeah, the fish, because the movement back and forth in the screen recognizes if it was movement on the screen.
What did he change the name to?
I don't know. I didn't check that one out. But
I mean, if it's Nemo, come on now. There's something's going on.
Okay, we're in the final minute. What is your final choice? Hide and stay away, or making it more difficult to do your duty?
Stay away.
Hide and stay away. We're going to go all the way to Bangladesh for this one because a young teenager was playing hide and go seek with his friends in Bangladesh and accidentally found himself in Malaysia.
Huh?
I know, it's a different country.
That's not close.
No, not close. He fell asleep inside of a shipping container, and then people came along, locked it, and they put him inside a truck, and then they shipped him 3,000 kilometers. He spent 6 days without food and water. He was found by port authorities January 17th, dehydrated and crying. He's now stable, recovering in the hospital, and going to be sent home. So, yeah, that's it. And that is unfortunately the end of You Choose the News. Before we get to the end of this segment, today you can get a special discount on the Broncos' new Cursed Monkey Paw. Yes, you've always wanted to have your team win, but oh my God, what happens when you get your wish? Yes, you want an experienced coach, but no, you get no draft picks to back it up. The team has to rebuild in free agency. You want a new quarterback, but he plays badly, and we give up new draft picks. You want a new up-and-coming coach. See previous quarterback coach thingy. So, you get 20% off a Cursed Monkey Paw today. Back to you, sir.
Oh, my gosh. The timing and the content were brilliant, but we're out of time. When we come back, she's no shrimp, but her first initial and last name are prawn. George Brockler, 710 KNUS. We've gone Lincoln Park here to launch the 7 o'clock hour on the George Show, 710 KNUS. First off, I want to again thank Frank for the great call to advance the conversation at 6 o'clock hour. But Billy, the You Choose the News was really a cut above. And again, they're always very good. But today's, and it makes me more disappointed that my time management was so poor, but for good reasons, that we cheated you out of some of that because one, I think the fact that we have some of the corporate bigwigs in town means if they listen to that segment, this could be the last George Show. Nobody knows, but if you don't hear us tomorrow and instead hear Jimmy, you'll know what happened. And that is they've cut me loose. And frankly, they will not punish Billy. It'll just be me. Now, listen, I am pleased as punch, and yes, I use that phrase, to have in studio, as always, we have the opportunity to have certain movers and shakers and policy thinkers and bigwigs in studio, but we're going a different direction in this segment. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, wow, who is it?
We're going with one of our favorites, one of our regulars in studio. And I said this before the break. She's no shrimp, although if you take the first initial and last name, it spells out prawn. It's our good friend Priscilla Rahn. Thanks for joining us, Priscilla.
Great to be here. Great to see you.
Now, listen, are we getting Priscilla on camera? Frankly, that's only going to increase the viewership and the subscribers. So thank you. If you get us over the benchmark Mark Crowley's set, all credit to you. You can see that Priscilla is wearing a coat. I've decided to don the same. Not just to make her feel good, but to make me feel good. Because as always, the temperature in this room is somewhere around 10 degrees Celsius, maybe 5 degrees Celsius. And I don't know what that equates to in Fahrenheit, like 30 below, but it is freaking cold in here. Priscilla, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. And I'm that's kind of a close camera. I feel like you can see my pores and stuff, you know?
That's the goal, because we're going to talk about not just candles, but facial cream. Yeah. So is that the next version of what you're doing?
Absolutely. I've been busy in my new, home office making things.
Listen, I want to talk politics with you. We're going to, but since we're here, how's the candle world?
The candle world is amazing. I recently made 25 gift candles for gift bags for an organization. Yeah. To try to get, pump up capitalism. So hopefully I'll get some business from those samples that I made.
And I think you've confirmed for us in the past that much like Tyler Durden from Fight Club, most of your candles are based on human fat. Is that
They are pretty much non-toxic. That's the goal.
That's great.
Soy and coconut.
Look at that. And so you have very clever names for your candles.
I do.
Have you created some recently that you're pretty proud of? You want to share with us?
I haven't created anything, although it became so popular that all of my friends are like, when am I going to get my candle? And I'm like, anytime.
You mean like named after them?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So designer candles.
Yes. If you want to buy a candle, I will design a label just for you.
That is, and does it cost a little extra?
No.
Are you throwing a little something like that?
No, it's from my heart.
That's impressive. If this thing really takes off, will you be burning them at both ends? Hello, that just happened right here.
Do you have that button?
Bam. No, I don't. I just have Billy. And so Billy usually comes on and does the verbal bump. That's low tech, but that's what we have. Priscilla Rahn, you are the vice chair of the state GOP party. There has been some stuff going on. One of them is we have a meeting coming up where there's going to be some decisions about the leadership. Your term in office is 2 years, right?
Yes.
And you have now been in this office for 14 cycles. No, I'm kidding. Is this your end of your first term?
End of my first term.
What we do know is that Christy Burton Brown has made the decision to not run again. She is going to return to, she says, activism and stuff. She does a lot of grassroots stuff. Education's a big thing for her. She has kids that she'd like to be smarter. So I imagine she's going to focus on the education stuff. But what I have not heard yet is that vice chair spot, which is critical to the success really of the organization. Have you decided whether or not you're going to run again? And are we going to get the exclusive announcement right here on the George Show on 710 KNUS?
Well, George, since you're one of my absolute favorite people on the entire planet.
Thank you.
Promises made, promises kept. I am officially announcing on your show that I am running for a second term to be Colorado's vice chairman.
We got it here. You have the exclusive, folks. You've heard it right here. Billy, I don't know if we have some sort of like celebratory music, maybe a big band or something, but this feels like the end of this segment has to be that kind of music.
On short notice, I can make fart noises with my armpit, but that's about as much as I can do on short
First
notice.
off,
it's not nice. It's not
thank you for
celebratory.
clarifying that what I'm
Just letting
hearing
you know.
through the window is an armpit,
Exactly.
because up until this point,
Yeah,
all I was praying for was another candle.
I know, but again, but at least I can play Jingle Bells. So, yeah.
That's going to be something we've saved for the holidays if we make it that far. Priscilla, congratulations, question mark.
Thank you.
Tell me about the decision making. And I say that in light of the fact that there has been some in the party who have been pretty aggressive about criticizing the leadership at the state GOP in light of the performance in the midterms. You know, I think anybody could totally see going through something like that and being like, you know what, I paid my dues, I did my thing, I can still be value added in another role. Why have you decided to continue to step up?
Well, I feel like, it's taken a couple of years to kind of learn the ropes and meet people. And we made some really great relationships these past 2 years in the community that I feel like can be strengthened. You know, as a teacher, I always feel like there's always more opportunities to learn and grow. And we do need some continuity. You know, with Christy leaving, and we're going to have new leadership at the top and new office staff. I think it's going to be helpful for myself and Marilyn, who's running for reelection.
Oh, she is?
Yes.
Marilyn's
yes.
such a great lady. I mean, and here's what's, for folks that don't understand how the party works and stuff, what is unique about this last bit of leadership that we had is KBB, you, and Marilyn are all kind of the grassroots folks that come from different parts of the state. But you're all grassroots activists that have found their way into leadership. I don't know that we've ever really had that before. So that was very unique. And I imagine that that's still going to be the approach for whoever it is that runs for chair as well. I'm glad to hear that Marilyn's run. She's a great lady.
Yeah, there's quite a steep learning curve. And when you're talking with people all across the state with different goals and desires and needs and just the nuances and the diversity in Colorado, it's really important to build on those relationships that, you know, we've worked so hard to be able to have that base to now go into 2 more years to grow, because we have great elections coming up, municipal, school board, which I'm really interested in as an educator. And then going into 2024, it's going to be a really important year for us as Republicans to get behind a really great Republican candidate for president. And of course, we have some legislative races that we're going to have to get behind. So having some of that institutional knowledge and stability going forward is going to be key to support who our new chair is.
It's the timing of 2024. It will be interesting for this rebuild. And it feels like we're going through a rebuild, right? Much like the Broncos in some ways. Is that 2024 offers not a single statewide race, right? Like we don't have Senate, we don't have governor, we have none of that stuff. We really can focus on the more regional and localized races. Of course, every congressional seat is up, but we have all of these legislative seats that are up that could help us shift the balance of power back under the Gold Dome. That's a big, big deal. You also have district attorney races and something called the President of the United States, which may be the big daddy of them all. First off, do you have any challengers that you know of?
Not that I know of at this time.
When you look at 2 big things, first off, again, this is going to feel super disorganized because it is. How long do we get to have you this morning before you have to go actually do a job?
Well, if you write me a note, because I can stay till a little bit before 8. How's that?
Oh, great. Okay, great.
Okay.
Because this will give me a chance to get into the second segment stuff, because I do want to talk to you about some things that have taken place recently in the party. But let's stay at the statewide level. When you look at doing another 2-year term, and you look at what you've done over the last 2 years, you talked about, hey, we want to continue the relationship building. What are the things that we have to do differently? And I think that everybody out there is like, we got to do something different because November was a dumpster fire of an outcome. What is it we have to do differently?
Couple of things that we need to do differently. One is, I know people hear this word a lot. It's that unifying piece. Persuading others to hear our heart and to talk about issues that impact people. We have to get better at having these conversations. Sometimes we're in a silo and we talk to each other and it's almost always red meat, how we talk about the issues and the things we're passionate about and upset about. But when we go out and talk to an unaffiliated voter, or maybe even a Republican who's not involved politically or volunteers in their local party about the issues, people want to hear, we care, and how are we talking about we care about them as a person and the realities of their life, and what solutions are we bringing, and are we asking people for their opinion and asking them to get involved, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of lift. And so being better at the art of persuasion and talking about the issues in a real way that's solution minded is something we're going to have to do better at. And that's something I'm committed with doing, is training candidates and training grassroots volunteers. And when you go door to door or talk with your neighbors or talk with your coworkers, how are you talking about these issues to the point where it's about the issue and it's about the solution and not about a party? I think that's going to be key. And the other key is money.
How did we do fundraising wise from a historic perspective in the 2022?
I think we did okay compared to the last term with Ken Buck.
Yeah.
I think we did okay, but it's not significant to compete against Democrats. For every one commercial we did, they had 10 commercials, and that takes money in order to get the message out. So by
the way, maybe that's the other benefit of 2024 for us. Of course, the airwaves will be flooded with presidential stuff, but not having a near billionaire governor and a United States senator who is sitting on a bank full of cash to flood the airwaves, there's an opportunity to try to get closer to parity. How do we do it? How do you convince? And this is what I'm feeling. And I don't have direct connection to the donors. I have direct connection to people who have direct connection to the donors. They're skittish. I mean, they looked at November and thought, whoa. Are we betting on a winner? Is there any reason to invest money in this if we don't have a shot? I mean, how do you get folks to start coming up with the bucks?
So, yeah, we need to manage expectations. And so when you talk about rebuilding, it's about building trust and it's about relationships. People will donate money to someone they trust or someone they feel like is going to be effective and impactful. And how do we do that? So we have to start from the bottom up again, train our candidates, train our volunteers. This is how we're going to work together with a plan. And so yes, municipal and school board races, these races that are close to home.
Yeah, those are coming up this year.
These are the low-hanging fruit where we can go to donors and say, hey, we need you to max donate to these candidates because it's more accessible. Those max donation numbers are easier to get. When we're talking about bigger congressional races or state races, the candidate needs to be trained on how to talk to donors, sit down one-on-one and say, how can we partner? What is it that we can do to make Colorado better? What specific solutions have you seen that you've done? Because big donors are successful. A lot of them are business owners. Yeah. They're smart. Right. And so they're smart with their money and they don't want to squander their money.
No, they don't want to bet on a loser.
They don't want to bet on a loser. Exactly. And so how can you present yourself and to your donor that this is you're a winner and this is a win-win relationship and a commitment on bringing solutions. And so that's an art, but we need to build up a bench. And so, my thought is we've got amazing Republican commissioners all across Colorado who have the power and authority to appoint people to boards and commissions and to learn how to build their resume and become great candidates. But there is a learning curve. And so it takes a little bit of time to learn how to be a statesman and learn how to go around to the community and be a listener and be calm and be solution oriented. So these are things that I think are going to help build up that relationship and trust with big donors.
Do you feel like the quality of the candidates was a significant issue for 2020? And I know that's a tough question to ask you because as the vice chair of the party, I mean, you're in the business of promoting all the candidates no matter how they made it onto the ballot. I get that. But is that what I think I hear you saying is we need to have more refined, better trained communicators as candidates than perhaps we had. Is that part of this?
I mean, that's a general statement. At the top, our statewide candidates were all experienced and amazing candidates. I think we
except for Kellner.
No, except for John.
Except for John. Really difficult to understand the words he says. It feels very choppy to me, like half sentences and then noises. I don't know how he's made it this far.
And I will say, and they were such likable people. I mean, had
Yeah,
great
I know.
conversations
I
with
know.
every single one of them. It's really tough when you have people who are running for re-election, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. When you're running against someone who's running for re-election, they automatically get a certain percentage of the vote, and so and they have a base. But again, going down the statewide ballots, that's where we have opportunities to start to build. I mean, and I want to encourage people, run for your HOA board. As much as we don't like HOAs, run for your HOA board, run for your school board, run for your PTA. Start getting involved and write op-eds. Go to the Capitol. There's opportunities every week to go to the Capitol and fight for the things that we believe in value-wise. So and start to get experience with coalition building. And these are the steps that you take in order to make yourself a really strong candidate, because that's when the scrutiny starts to come. When you run for something and the questions start coming, if you got to have answers and you have to have that ability to talk with people and persuade people. And so I'm not saying that we didn't have great candidates, but I am saying the further down you go, obviously that's where you have to build the resume.
And you mean down the ballot?
Down the ballot.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
What did I say?
You said further down. I just want to make sure.
Oh, yes.
I can see your hands gesturing, and everyone who's on the YouTube sees you doing that, showing that it's the ballot. But further down, I didn't want people to think that you were like throwing stones or something. You're just basically saying, listen, as you work your way down the ballot, you get to races where there's more obscurity and there's bigger pressure on them because they just don't have the campaign structure, the funding, and all that other stuff. I like what you said about this year's election cycle, because that school board stuff and the municipalities, you can have a real impact right now. And the proof of that, even though these are nonpartisan races, is the Douglas County School Board flipped in the last election cycle, and Aurora City Council. Those are two consequential organizations that voters have a direct impact on, that even though they're nonpartisan, you can see how having conservative voices on there makes a difference in what those folks do. I like the HOA comment too. Yeah, we don't like the HOAs, but if you want to see HOAs limited in the craziness that they do, become the HOA, right? Like, be part of that.
That's actually where I started. I wanted to dip my pinky toe into the world of politics. And I thought, well, I'll start with my HOA, because I wasn't happy with our management company. And I got on the HOA and we replaced the management company.
Oh, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Huge benefit. The community loved it.
We voted to replace the management company because I personally felt like they were being unfair to homeowners.
And you have the change that you made for that HOA. Is it still in place?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good sign. How many years ago did you do that?
3.
That's pretty good. That's impressive. The lasting change that you can make even at the HOA. We're talking with Priscilla Rahn, vice chair of the party. I have more questions about stuff, but we're coming up close to a natural break. You've told us you can stay. I just want to give you the opportunity to save your career and bow out now.
Yeah, I have a few more. I can stay for a little bit more.
You should, if you watch the YouTube, you saw her look down at the phone like there was going to be some saving message or a time where she's like, oh my God, we're out of time. I'm so sorry. I have to go be a teacher again. So we'll get back with Priscilla Rahn in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about a superstar in her own right. Her name is Gay Ribble. She is part of the Empower Home team of realtors. And frankly, she's the top of the pyramid. If you look at people, and you've heard Priscilla talk about, it takes time to get people trained up. That's true of any industry. If you call Gay Ribble, as you think about to yourself, in this market, in this challenging, stressful market, who can best get me the outcome that I need? And that's selling your house for top dollar and getting you into that next dream house in a competitive market with the least amount of stress. That's Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. They do a bunch of crazy stuff that gets them results you don't get with other realtors. How about this? On average, they sell your home for $30,000 more than the average realtor. That's $30K. That's a lot of money. That takes Billy an entire month of work to earn that kind of money behind the glass. They also sell the homes faster than your average realtor. The Reynolds Empower Home team, they have all the buyers. Gay's told you about this before. 14,000 buyers in waiting, just waiting for you to list your home with them. When I'm talking about real estate and talking about buying a house, there is a one-stop shop to go to, and that is Gay Ribble. I trust Gay, not just because she's great at this work, but because she's also a good person. And I've told you before, she is dedicated to building families. She is invested passionately in adoption. I love that. Adoption touches my family directly. I like her part. I like her heart, and I like the fact that she is great at what she does. If you want to work with someone who has programs like, their Empower Home free workshops, and you ought to do that. EmpowerHomeFreeWorkshops.com. That's how easy it is. EmpowerHomeFreeWorkshops.com. They help to empower you to make smart decisions. Also, the Sold in 5 program, 6.1% more for your home. Sold in 5? Are you kidding? That's what they do. The Reynolds Empower Home team, they're the best source. Do me a favor. Go out to gayhasthebuyers.com. Also call 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. When we come back, it's you, me, some of the texts, and Prawn from the state GOP party. George Brockler, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today. Want to take your
into the Way Back machine for the Cranberries here on 710 KNUS. That's got to be 30 years ago. And back then, Priscilla, you were 4. Whoa.
Yeah, that was an embryo.
We're still talking with the once and future vice chair for the state GOP party. You know her better now as Prawn. It's Priscilla Rahn. We're talking about T-shirts that she could have made up. I'm no shrimp. Prawn. We'll see. I don't know if that's a winning campaign slogan. I begged her not to do this, but Priscilla has agreed to take phone calls from callers. We're going to open that up, 303-696-1971. Before we get to the calls, and we already have one on the line here, I do want to ask you a couple questions because texters, and you can get us on the app or at 710knus.com with the text, has said, who did you support for chairman or chairperson of the RNC, and do you have a vote in that?
No, I don't have a vote. Only 3 people in each state get to vote. It's the
I was 2 of them. No, I don't. I don't have a vote.
It's the chairperson of each state and the national committee man and national committee woman. So the vice chair does not get a vote.
So that's KBB, Randy, and Vera.
Correct.
Yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
So those 3 folks are the only 3 votes that were had. I think Randy indicated he voted for Dylan. But I don't actually, I've never asked KBB. I don't know who she voted for, but that's to answer that question right there. The other thing is someone texted in, and this is smart too. We started the conversation about candles and the fact that Priscilla, in what limited spare time that she has when she's not teaching kids or running around trying to make the state party better, she makes candles. And there's a website where people can go to get non-toxic candles.
Yes.
What is it?
It's rodellorganics.com, and Rodell is spelled RHODELL.
Say that again, because the H snuck up on me.
RHODELL organics, plural.com, or you can find me on Etsy at Rodell Organics.
The Etsy. Because
Etsy.com.
For me, when you're over 50, every single tech thing has to begin with the. Like, kids, are we going to watch the Netflix today?
It's not in this case. There's no the, and everybody's like, well, where does Rodell come from? I was named after my grandmother. That's my middle name, Rodell.
Oh, yeah. Rodell with an H. That's pretty cool. All right. Now let's get back to the good stuff that's here. We have a caller on the line. You foolishly agreed to take calls. Jennifer, you're on 710 with Priscilla and George.
Or is it George and Prawn?
Well, whichever name you use, you always lead with the best part of the show, and that's Prawn.
All right. Well, for now on, she will always be known as Prawn.
And
I understand that her soap edible?
It's not, but I would not recommend eating the soap, but it's very natural.
So you have soap and candles?
Oh, my soaps are amazing.
Oh,
We
wait,
talked about
what?
this is the best soap. Oh no, I didn't talk about it on show.
No,
I
you
talked about it on
the candle.
Stefan's show.
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
my
that
soaps
explains a lot because hygiene is a challenge.
The soap is amazing. Yes.
Is it really?
Handcrafted.
Like tingly? Like it'll.
Oh,
will it make me look younger? Because I could use that.
Oh yeah, it reverses aging.
Ooh.
Man,
I better not say that because like I could get in trouble by the whatever these
Biden,
FDA, the bureaucracy.
Jennifer, I'm sure you called in to talk more about soap, but
I did. I was going to say, hey guys, can we move this along now?
Yeah.
So I got some questions. And by the way, Priscilla, thanks for running. You're kind of like Obi-Wan, you know. You're our last great hope, Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it. If you'll strike me down, I shall. Yeah, go ahead.
We've seen a number of candidates run for higher offices that have no experience. So I really like what you're talking about as far as getting some bench strength. But, you know, it's not always easy to get these appointments. For example, in my previous residence, I was in an industry where I was very knowledgeable of that county's land use resolution, land use code, and applied for a planning commission spot and was rejected first year. I went back and I applied again, rejected a second time. And really, when I looked at the breakdown of everybody who was appointed, they were all that one party or they were unaffiliated. So do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to, you know, get their toe in the water, run for something, but the odds are stacked against them? And then I have one more question.
Yeah, I know. I think that's where maybe you take a step back and you start showing up to meetings with no agenda, just shake hands with commissioners and then ask to have a coffee with them and say, hey, you know, I have a perspective, diversity of thought's really important. I have ideas. Here's what I feel like I can contribute. Can I have an opportunity? Can I be an alternate? We have for every district, we have alternates that show up when an appointed person can't make it. And so there's another step before being appointed that you can start to tip your pinky toe in the water. And so I would say just showing up to different meetings and getting to know one-on-one because it's a trust issue too with them.
Yeah.
And I think for the sake of having representation that's more diverse on these committees is a great argument.
One other thing that Jennifer's question makes me think of is there some sort of a central clearinghouse that the party has that lets people know on some of these more obscure governmental committees and stuff what vacancies there are? And I know that our friend Kathleen Chandler from Independence Institute, she keeps track of a lot of that and shoots out 8 billion emails. Maybe I'm asking the wrong person, but how do we get that information out to people?
Absolutely. That kind of depends on the chairperson in your county, how experienced they are with all of these committees. And so you're right. Kathleen is master at talking about how to get involved at the civics engagement. But I think your listeners, now that they know like this is an opportunity, you can take some initiative, join one of the Independent Institute's training sessions, but also go to your county chair and say, I'm really interested in taking the next step. Who do you know in the county that I can sit down and have a conversation with? And I would start there and just assert yourself into the process, because it starts with we the people. And you don't have to have a ton of experience. You have to have a desire and the ability to work with other people.
Jennifer, you had a part B.
Yes, and this one's a tough one. So are you ready, Prawn?
Hold on. Somebody just texted in and said, why does Jennifer sound like KBB? I promise you, this is not Christy Burton Brown. I love the idea, though, that there's like a deep throat call out there. Like, what about this?
What about this? No,
who's your favorite chairman ever?
Christy has a really well-controlled voice where sometimes I squeak a little bit. So no, I'm not KBB. All right, here's my other question. You have seen the field unfold for chair. How do you see yourself working with what is likely going to be a very right-leaning chair?
Well, and I'll follow up on that. I think that's a very good question, and I don't want to make it awkward for whoever you work with, but who is absolutely the worst candidate? No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna ask you that at all.
Didn't you tell me in the break you were thinking about running?
Never once have I uttered those words. And I'll say this, and it's been flattering. Some people have reached out and said, hey, have you thought about it? I've heard your name rumor. I'm like, no, look, I'm not cut out for that role. That is not a me role.
Yeah, there are a lot of rumors. But anyway,
I love rumors.
So how do I see myself working with the new chair?
So KBB, you've worked with her for 2 years. I think it's a great question. When you look at the field, how do you adjust to whomever is going to take over that top of the pyramid position?
Sure. Everybody that's running has different strengths. And so I feel like my job and my role is to fill in wherever there are weaknesses, or use my strengths and leverage my strengths to work with whoever the chair is. We're a team. We're going to be a team. The goal is going to be to help get Republicans elected. And so I feel like I can work with anybody. I'm not afraid to share my opinion, behind closed doors about things. And hopefully whoever the new chair is will be a great listener, a great team player, and continue to work with candidates. And so it's really the choice is up to the voters, the Republicans, at the assembly, to vet the candidates, ask the hard questions now, because that's a big decision for them to make. I can work with anybody.
How many folks are in the field right now? Do you remember the names of who's already announced?
Right now, I know officially 3 have announced. So Casper, Eric, and Aaron Wood.
And Eric Odlin is, of course, the former congressional nominee for Congress against Brittany Pedersen. So he's running, and then Aaron Wood. And Aaron Wood, the only reason I really know that name as well as I do is because he produced at least that appearance over by the state party headquarters, where a bunch of people took to the back of some truck and said some really horrible things. And it gets me to my next question. Jennifer, by the way, thank you for the phone call. Christy, thank you for Jennifer, thank you for the phone call. I appreciate that. And keep listening. But you talked earlier on about the whole unity thing. And so when you look at those events that took place, the ones that were using words like treachery and treason and asswipes and all this other stuff, how in God's name are you going to help us get, and I'm not saying it's your responsibility. I'm saying you have rightly identified that that is a huge issue for us right now, not in 2024, right this second. How do you do that?
Yeah. So I use my voice, my platform to say what I feel is unacceptable and immoral and not conducive to bringing people together. Those are words that turn people off and anger people, because elections are won in the middle. And I don't care where you fall on the spectrum, we have to be respectful, and we can't talk about each other that way. And nobody wants to be involved in an organization where you're insulted and called out of your name and put down for no reason other than you can't control your emotions and you don't understand how to play nice in the sandbox. So at the end of the day, again, it comes down to the voters. I would hope that, and I know because these are the most involved volunteers that are running to be bonus members. These are the people that really want to have a voice. My hope is that we expect that our top leaders are respectful. They have a plan, that they are reasonable and calm, that they understand how to triage and problem solve and fix the problems in a way that will get us the most movement and the most change that we need to see. That's the expectation I have. And so I will use my platform and my voice to call out things that I think are inappropriate, because I think that's what people elected me to do.
Even if it comes from the chair?
Yes.
That's interesting. And I wouldn't expect anything less from you, but another unity topic, but something that maybe isn't on everybody's radar. There was an event that took place that involved the El Paso County GOP.
Oh, I gotta go.
Billy, lock the door.
Yeah,
Do
4
not
minutes.
let Prawn leave. Can you describe, and I know it's not a question of taking sides one way or the other, but procedurally talk about what just took place and where does it leave us?
So there were some individuals in El Paso County who contacted the state party chair. They're unhappy with some decisions that were made
by the party chair in El Paso.
By the county chair in El Paso.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So state party chair did a call to have a meeting via Zoom, an emergency meeting of the state central committee. And so we didn't have enough time to hear both sides. I mean, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
And was this the yesterday thing?
This was the yesterday thing. So the question, and it was a very well attended meeting. The question was whether this meeting was appropriate, if this was the right step, because typically if there's a controversy, it goes to the county and the county has to resolve it amongst themselves first. And if it's not resolved, then it comes to the state. So that step didn't take place. So
okay, interesting.
There are some folks who feel like that should have taken place first before state heard the problems that were happening. Yeah. So what ended up happening was a vote to essentially remove the county chair, the party chair for the meeting, and have a neutral person run the meeting for the reorg meeting next month on the 11th of February. So it was very close, almost 50-50. It was very tight.
What does that tell you?
Tells me that there are people who walked away from that meeting feeling like it wasn't fair.
Damn, see, and again, when you say stuff like that, and I believe you, it brings me back to that idea of how and when are we going to unify over this?
Well, that's the key. This is the fundamental thing, I think, with all the contention across the state is a fairness issue. I was thinking about what is the root of what's happening here, where both sides don't feel like something is fair in the process. And so that's when we have to go back to our bylaws and see what is it that we're procedurally supposed to do. And I fundamentally believe in a governance that is, smaller government, freedom, capitalism, proper role of government. I know you're giving me this look like, why would I don't know how to interpret that look.
The
And
YouTube folks know what she's talking about.
So, I think like, how is the party governing? Are we governing with that same model? And so I think it's really, really crucial that people walk away, being heard and being on the Douglas County Planning Commission. That's my goal. When people come from the public and I'm sitting on the dais, no matter which way I vote, I have to make sure that everybody involved feels heard, that they feel like it's fair, and that I'm making a reasonable decision. I can explain why I'm making the decision. And so I see people leaving that, or I saw people leave that meeting last night feeling like the process wasn't fair.
Yeah, that's a killer.
That is a
That
killer.
is a killer.
And so that's something that we're going to have to fix. Whoever our new chair is coming in is going to have to make sure that the appearance and the process are all on the up and up, and that it's fair, so that people can walk away saying, well, I didn't get my way, and that's okay, because this is a democratic process, the vote majority vote.
Yep.
But at least I felt respected and I felt fair.
And
fair.
You've hit upon something that's very American, and that is we are not an outcome-driven system. We are a process-driven system. And I live in that with the criminal justice system. I don't win every single case I go to trial on, but I don't walk out of court feeling like I got cheated by the rules or sometimes by the judge, but never like enough to think it anyway. So last question, tough one. My guess is each of the three candidates running for chair right now are invested in the idea of having us withdraw from the current primary system and do that sort of circle the wagons assembly only nomination process. Have you given that any thought and what your position is on that?
Well, I feel fundamentally, and I'm on record saying this, that Republicans should vote for Republicans.
Agreed.
in a primary. And so, again, this comes down to how do we make that happen without alienating people? What's the best process? We have to follow the law. And so, again, it comes down to how do we persuade our legislators to change the process, or how do we make this work so we don't,
Well, we could vote to withdraw. And again, the last time we tried this was just 15 minutes ago, and it got defeated pretty soundly. I'm not sure that would happen again. I feel like that whatever that high threshold is it 75% or something? We might hit that. The only thing I'm concerned about is not just the idea that we're excluding unaffiliated voters from that, but we're saying, hey, we want Republicans to make this decision. But really what we'd be doing is saying we want 4,000 Republicans to make this decision for everybody else, because there wouldn't be a primary that we would send out ballots and pay for. My guess is they would just say, let's just do it at the convention. And then all of a sudden it becomes a very, very small universe of participants. Billy just gave, I think, one of us the middle finger. And I think what he means is we're out of time. I presume it was you. And Billy, I think that's rude to treat our guest that way. Nonetheless, Priscilla Rahn, fantastic vice chair for the party. My hope is with no other thoughts on who could do a better job, because I just don't think they can. My hope is we have you around to kick around the radio for the next 2 years in this position.
Thank you. I heart you.
Last question. Remind us of the website for apparently candles that also double as soap. If I've misstated that, you can actually light them, enjoy the aroma, and get clean at the same time.
Yes. Rodell Organics, RHODELL Organics, plural.com.
And they're also, according to Jennifer, the caller, edible.
I would not recommend that.
You heard it here first, folks. Breaking news, exclusive news. Priscilla Rahn, a candidate for vice chair of the state party, part 2. Priscilla, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, George.
Hey, when we come back, we're going to be joined by our buddies from Alpine Planning. It's George Proctor on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
We be back here at 710 KNUS, going right to the VIP line. That's VIP. It rhymes with babe. It's our friend Gabe. And now I suddenly am disappointed in my choice of rhyming words. Nonetheless, Gabe from Alpine Planning, how are you, my friend?
You're making me blush, George, honestly.
I should have just texted it to you, which would have made it more awkward, but less public. Man, what's going on out there?
Starting this morning in the red, sir. A big day on Wall Street with the Fed announcing its interest rate decision later today. That'll come at noon.
What's your guess?
Mountain, 2 p.m. Eastern. I think overall money is on a quarter basis point hike, but I think what's which will be the lowest since last March. But I think what's really important is, although things seem to be abating as far as inflation, we've seen months and months of inflation coming down. It's still well above its long-term average, and I think the Fed has a mandate to finish its process. I actually saw a good analogy. It's like taking the full antibiotic prescription, even though you're already better.
Yeah,
so,
listen, I worry about that. I think the Fed, and they were much maligned early. Maybe they're going to give us that soft landing, but look, we're going to know pretty soon whether or not they have screwed this whole thing up or they are master abaters of the. You realize that was just a setup because I'm 12 on the inside. Forgive me.
You're on fire between Gabe and master abaters.
I know somebody, by the way, Gabe, I don't mean to cut you off, but somebody sent me a link to Wikipedia for prawn. And one of the definitions, I kid you not, is a deliberate misspelling of porn to bypass internet filters. And now I suddenly feel horrified for our good friend Priscilla because we had the T-shirts ordered. Anyway, go on with what should we expect financially, my friend?
Oh, George. Well, you're exactly right. I think Brian, Amy's, and I concern on why we think it's going to be a choppy few quarters here is all of the layoffs you're getting in the tech space and throughout the economy have not really settled in yet. You're finally starting to see some tick up in things like credit card debt, car default payments, things of that nature. And so I think we are really at an inflection point with the Fed. And if the economy can sort of power through the position they've put it in. Obviously, it's their mandate to control prices, but we'll just see if the consumer, if jobs can stay strong. And so I think it's going to be a trying time. I think if your listeners need some help with their plan, their portfolio, the market's being up so much in January. NASDAQ was up over 11%. You know, its best month since the start of the century. I think that now is some time, if you are worried about it, that there are some capital preservation plays to be made. But obviously, as we always say, investing is a long-term game, and I think there's a balance between growth and protection. And so if you have some listeners that need help with that, just have them give Amy, myself, and Brian a call.
Quickly, before we let you go, how many snow days have you had so far up on the mountain?
I'm not at liberty to say because I think Brian and Amy might shoot me.
Okay. Well, next time we'll text it off air. Listen, folks, there's simply no need to try to guess at what to do. There's no need to just surf around the internet and try to take someone else's advice. You have subject matter experts. Love these folks. Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term financial success. Investing, as always, it's a matter of trust, and they're prepared to earn and keep yours. Call them today, 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Gabe, thank you, my man.
Don't stop the PB jokes.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Love me some Gabe from Alpine Planning. Listen, when we come back, we're going to be joined by somebody who's crazy enough to run for mayor of Denver. George Brockler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brockler right back with you here. We're on the back half of the show that is on the first day of the month. And as I said at the 6 o'clock hour, if you were thinking of starting a diet, there's something magical about starting at the beginning of the month. I climbed onto the scale this morning and I uttered the F word. Honestly, it was eye-opening in the wrong way, but suffice it to say, I will be drinking nothing but water and eating egg sandwiches for the foreseeable future till I can trim the scales back down to, I don't know what's happened, folks, but I have ballooned up like a Macy's Day Parade float. I don't like looking at myself in the mirror. Nonetheless, let me just say this. There's a big race that is going on right now, and it's going to come to a head in about the next 15 seconds, and that is who is going to be the next mayor of the Queen City of the state of Colorado, and that's Denver. And that's where we are right now, on the edge of Denver. It is the capital of Colorado, but it is the most consequential city in this region of America. And that's not just like a pride of authorship kind of thing. That is no joke legit. What Denver does and how it goes impacts far more than just the metro area. And there are people out there who are honestly crazy enough to think that they want to run that show. And anybody that feels like they want to be mayor of Denver, just in sort of that rubbernecking a car wreck kind of a thing, you want to have them on the radio. And we've already had Mike Johnston on to talk about this. I'd love to have other candidates, but we had someone reach out to us that I said, absolutely, we have to have this conversation. First name Andy, last name I know rhymes with Rougeot. Andy, thanks for joining us here on 710.
Thanks for having me, George.
Now, normally I start with background, and I will get there, but I really kind of want to begin with the question on everyone's mind. What's wrong with you? Why would you want to do this after having lived such a successful life?
Well, I'm someone who loves this city. I'm a former Army officer, small business owner, and a dad. And I want my kids to grow up in the city where they can raise a family, they can be safe. And that's an opportunity that's being taken away by the mayor and the city council right now. Crime is skyrocketing. We've seen almost a tripling of murders in the past 10 years. We're one of the car theft capitals of the country. Homelessness is out of control. We've seen a doubling of unsheltered homeless in the past 4 years. And no one can afford to live in housing. No one can afford to live in our city. So I'm running for mayor to fight for our future and make sure that we're reducing crime, homelessness, and the cost of housing in our city.
Andy, you said some things I want to follow up on. First off, did you say you grew up here? Did you do high school here?
No, so I moved around. I came out here with the Army in 2011, and then after deployment to Afghanistan with the Rangers, I moved into Denver with my now wife and started doing the commute down to the Springs.
Okay, so you were down at Carson.
I was, yep, stationed at 4ID.
Which part of 4ID? Which brigade?
I was in 3rd Brigade, but then a deployment with the 3rd Ranger Battalion is what brought me up to Denver, where my then ex-girlfriend, now wife, said, if we're going to make this work out, you're going to move in with me and you're going to start doing the commute down.
I like that your wife is described as your ex-girlfriend. I think that's genius.
Yeah, I wore her down over time and convinced her that I was worth marrying, and now we've got 2 beautiful little girls.
I think, by the way, that's the next interview folks want to hear is probably from your wife. And I'll ask her the same question. What were you thinking?
She's much more interesting than me. But the key thing there is, those 2 little girls deserve to live in a city where if I walk out my back gate, as we live in the north side, and we'll see a homeless man with his pants around his ankles using his restroom. And I'll have to go back inside of my house with my, now 3-year-old in my arms crying about why we can't go to the park.
Andy,
call 911. Call 411, nothing happens.
Yeah, listen, you're speaking truth to the audience here. This particular audience knows well what's going on in Denver, not just because many of them live there, but because we have really focused quite a bit for some selfish reasons on the crime stuff. It's a conversation that has been ongoing, but something feels like it's missing in that post-midterm election period of time where the legislature, even the legislature, which has a great deal of Denverites in it, are back at just doing what they've done before that led us here. What is it you think the mayor of Denver can do to try to fix what's going on there?
So the mayor can actually fix this issue because the mayor can hire more police officers. So as mayor, I will fight for our future by adding foreign police officers. The mayor can increase funding for police so they're better trained in our city. The mayor can also stand in front of our DA and say, you are not prosecuting criminals. You are releasing people on personal reconnaissance bonds who are violent criminals, who are threats to our city.
Or
We can
$1
highlight
or $5 bonds. Like she could say, oh, I'm not doing PR bonds, but she's doing like $1 or $5 bonds. That is a PR bond.
Yes. And if you're highlighting someone, say, for example, who has been a repeated domestic violence threat, that is ridiculous that we're releasing those people on those $1 or on those $5 PR bonds. And having a mayor who stands in front of our DA and says she is failing our city can galvanize people, can make sure that we are actually keeping our city safer.
Well, listen, some other things that you would have influence over, Andy. And by the way, let me back up again. Selfish question. Were you an officer or NCO in the Ranger Battalion?
So I was an officer attached to the Rangers. So key distinction is there's not enough military intelligence officers who can hack Ranger selection programs. So they pull us from Big Army.
Oh, I got it.
Pulled from 4ID to deploy with them.
So you spent time at Fort Huachuca?
I did.
And where'd you get your commission?
So I was an officer candidate school commission.
For folks that don't know, of the 3 ways to become an officer, OCS, ROTC, or one of the academies, OCS, the hardest. I don't think anybody disputes that that is the most difficult way to become an officer. So my hat's off to you. And thanks for the deployment too. I appreciate your service in really one of the toughest spots on the planet Earth for us in the last 20 years. When you talk about fixing public safety, you have some influence over chief of police. You also have the ability, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, to pick a public safety manager. Have you given some thought to the kind of person you would want to fill that role?
Yes. As mayor, I will appoint people who will fight for our future by actually enforcing our law. And right now, there is just no accountability at the mayor's office. Everything is an excuse. It's here's why the state legislature is the problem. Here's why city council is the problem. Here's why X, Y, and Z is the problem. It's never a mayor saying, I own this issue, my team owns this issue, and we are responsible for rising crime. So a mayor who will add 400 police officers, will increase funding for police, will get the illegal guns off our streets, is something that can actually happen and can drive down crime.
Listen, I just heard this yesterday. You probably are well aware of it, and I'm not interested in talking about other specific candidates, but I will tell you that I heard that one of the candidates, major candidate for mayor, has as their deputy campaign manager someone who they have, this is all rumor, man, have been suggested for the manager of public safety, former head of the ACLU out here. That to me is not a formula for public safety at all. It's the opposite of that. I've also heard there's other folks out there who are running for mayor who I know are not very pro law enforcement. In fact, they are anti-law enforcement based on at least what they've done in the public sphere thus far. When you look at the field and you're trying to distinguish yourself from them, how big a deal is the public safety piece as you're moving around Denver talking to folks?
So I think it's a critical piece because when you look at me versus all the other candidates who are all sort of career politicians, the difference is I am the only person who's saying I will enforce the campaign ban.
Well, that's another thing, Andy, that's another thing. I heard that there are candidates out there who pledge not to enforce the camping ban.
Yes, there are candidates who will say the solution is safe injection sites and the solution is a universal basic income for homeless.
Listen, when
are crazy ideas.
Andy, when you take the oath to be mayor, are there words along the lines of I swear to uphold and defend, that kind of stuff?
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure of the specifics of the oath to defend, but I remember my oath of office as an Army officer, and that would guide me in terms of my service.
What I can't understand are candidates who say, I realize this is the law of the land, this is the law in the books, this is our ordinance. I'm just going to simply choose not to enforce it. That doesn't feel a lot like America.
Or someone who says, I see someone sleeping on the streets dealing with a fentanyl addiction issue, and the right solution is to give them cash. That's just going to go right to drugs. Or the right solution is to look at them and say, they are choosing to live that life and saying, how can we help this person by getting them into services, by getting them into the shelter system? And I just don't understand that mindset that says the compassionate thing to do is to step over somebody instead of actually help them.
So how are you going to fix this? We've had this homelessness problem, not just in existence for decades, but it has gotten worse, progressively worse. It's like the road to homelessness instead of the road home. How does Mayor Andy fix this?
So we can see the spike in homelessness that happened when we stopped enforcing the camping ban. And that was due to a lack of political courage and effort by our current mayor. We have a law in the books that allows us to end unsheltered homelessness in the city with no changes. We just need a mayor who has the guts to actually do what's right and fight for our future.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I lost you there for just 1 second.
No, so I was saying that we have a law in the books, our camping ban, which can end unsheltered homelessness and actually enforce. We just need a mayor who will actually enforce our law and fight for our future.
There's something else that we've noticed, and that is, and maybe the numbers have changed, but like commercial space is incredibly vacant in Denver and has been. I get during the pandemic, but it seems like it's slow to fill back up. We've also seen some numbers that suggest that statewide, but Denver-wide, less and less people are super excited about moving into the state and the city. Outside of crime and homelessness, which are two freaking huge topics, man, that might influence that, what else is going on that the mayor can address that will make Denver a go-to destination for businesses?
So the cost of housing is one of the biggest drivers of the cost of labor in our city. So having a mayor who will fix a broken permitting department, which right now has more than a year backlog.
Oh my God.
A year of people waiting for a stamp from the government to be able to move into a home that's already finished. I talked to a business owner who opened a new restaurant, spent $120,000 on fixtures and rent, didn't serve a single meal because it took more than a year for the city to approve it, and she had to shut down before she could even serve that first meal.
Oh, buddy, that's craziness. Now, listen, the other thing that makes me question your sanity, although I love the answers I'm hearing so far, is that you have a pretty thick field of candidates. And I would say this, that if I had to eyeball the spectrum ideologically, I would say you were further on the right than many of the other candidates. And that's not to say that you're some hyper libertarian, but I'm looking at the rest of the spectrum here. How does somebody who has conservative values get elected mayor in the city of Denver?
So when I talk to the people in the city of Denver, everybody just wants someone who will get something done. They're tired of the promises and with nothing happening from all these politicians are running. So if you're looking at candidates and I see someone who has done something as a veteran, as a small business owner, as a father, that's an option. Or you could say, I want to go with a politician who's been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years and is the reason why the city is having the issues it's having right now. So I think the choice is between a candidate who can actually accomplish something and fight for our future versus just another politician. And that's a pretty clear field.
You are perhaps the top fundraiser thus far. If I'm wrong on that, please correct me. I think you're the top fundraiser in the race. But the folks that are right there behind you, I mean, they're right there behind you. Tell folks how the voting process works, not just in terms of the calendar, but my guess is this isn't a one and done election. There's going to be a runoff of sorts. Tell us how it works in Denver.
Correct. So there's an initial election in the beginning of April, followed up by a runoff of the top two vote getters 2 months later. So, I am proud, by the way, to be the only candidate not taking the public matching funding. So in the city of Denver, we have a crazy scheme where if someone gives you $1, the city matches it with $9.
What?
Up to a certain amount.
Wait, what?
Yes.
A
Absolutely
9-to-1 match?
A 9-to-1 match. And there's almost no restrictions on how that money is being spent. So we've seen candidates spending that money at liquor stores. Spending that money on hosting plays. So we are wasting taxpayer dollars on political consultants, on messaging consultants, and on poll. And so to me, it's crazy that anybody is taking these dollars from the taxpayer and throwing away. So we are encouraging people to pay themselves salaries for fake runs for mayor.
They're paying themselves salaries off of the matching funds?
Yes, I think it's criminal. It's the fact that we're doing that. So I'm proud I'm the only candidate who is not taking that funding, and we're still leading in fundraising.
Look, Andy, have you seen any stories in the media about this? There's a 9-to-1 match from taxpayer funds, and candidates are paying themselves a salary?
So, the stories I see are about how great it is that we have this, which is, again, crazy to me because we see already the issues it's causing in terms of a large field with candidates who honestly don't have a chance and are wasting taxpayer dollars. So I think it's a classic example of something where the city thought it was a good idea and is failing to execute and is causing problems. We're seeing that again with their policies on homelessness, the policies on crime. Last week or this past week, we decided to decriminalize jaywalking.
I
in our
saw
city.
that. I saw that.
Yeah, when we're having a spike of pedestrian deaths, mostly caused by homeless individuals cutting across busy streets. So jaywalking is a critical tool there to keep someone safe, so they're not walking across Colfax while traffic is going 35 to 40 miles per hour and potentially getting hit by a car. So we're seeing again and again the failed policies of the council and the mayor hurting the people of Denver.
Yeah, here's the other thing too, and I'm not experienced enough civil attorney to know how this works. But when someone wanders out into traffic and they break the law in doing so, it provides some level of responsive protection to the driver. But when you take that away and it's not criminal, I don't know what that does to the potential civil suit here. But this sounds crazy to me. And again, I know that it's not in favor to be supportive of this broken window theory of criminal justice. But I have never seen anywhere in America the decriminalization of lower level offenses that hasn't directly resulted, even in the short term, in a spike in the bigger crimes that we don't want to have. So I don't know what's going on in Denver, and I don't know how you change that, because a city council move, and by the way, the city council, they seem a little left to me. I mean, this is just me stabbing in the dark. How do you undo something like that as mayor?
So one, you have the power to veto stuff coming out of city council as mayor. Then you can also use your bully pulpit to say, hey, this is the damage that this law caused. Because, honestly, most people don't pay attention to what the city council is doing day to day. But if you have a mayor who's highlighting issues that are going to make our city less safe, who's focusing on adding police officers, on better funding those police officers, we can make a difference.
Andy, whether it'll probably be off air, whether it's you or Matt or anybody else, I want to get a list of candidates who are paying themselves money off of this 9-to-1 taxpayer match, because this to me is explosive news. I don't get how the major TV stations or the Denver Post or Denver Gazette are not covering this, because that feels like straight up legalized fraud. If you can put those two words together, this is craziness, man.
I think that's a sign of many craziness things in our cities, like having safe injection sites, solution to people dealing with an addiction that's, poison is likely to cause their death. So we're seeing again and again, failed city policies hurting our city. And that's why we deserve a mayor who will fight for our future.
Well, listen, I know that this is an uphill battle for anybody from anywhere running for Denver mayor. But because you're talking about common sense solutions, it's probably even more uphill for you than the other candidates. How in the hell do you win this, Andy?
We win this by showing that we can actually solve these issues, by saying that, because regardless of political background, regardless of where you live in this city, regardless of how long you've lived here, you want a city that's safe. You want a city where you can eventually buy a home. You want a city where you can raise kids. And that is not a partisan issue. That is an issue of just day-to-day life. So having someone who has experience as an Army officer, experience as a small business owner, as a father, and can say credibly they will fight for our future by doing those things, is a path to victory.
Yeah, remind me, and I didn't ask you this, forgive me, the small business experience. Tell us what you've done.
So I owned a business that fixed gates for self-storage units. So grew it from 12 employees to almost 50 employees over 5 years. The type of business where, I'd come home covered in grease and sweat, and I couldn't get a hug from the wife until I'd taken a shower. So, really proud of offering and growing benefits there, growing wages. And I think it sets me apart from other candidates, because I'm the only candidate with actual business experience in this race.
Kudos to your wife for insisting on personal hygiene as a gatekeeper to physical contact. She sounds like a really, really smart woman. And let me say that
you can ruin a lot of clothes with skill grease if you're not careful.
Let me say this too. And folks that haven't run for office don't get this. The impact on the candidate is one thing, but you can suffer the slings and arrows and the sacrifices far better than your wife, who's got to deal with the 2 kids. Really, she's a superstar in this, even though, we're not going to see her on the ballot. We're not going to get a chance to vote for her. I'm telling you, the spouses of candidates who run for office, especially with small kids, and I've been there, man, they're heroes.
I agree. And we also know from the military, it's the same thing. So she was with me when I was deployed to Afghanistan, and she had to deal with the days when, we got a blackout on phone calls because we had, lost a ranger, and then have those days of worrying until she could talk to me again. So it's something where, she's a much braver woman than I. I'm lucky to be married to her.
Can I ask one last question? It's sort of going back, but we got a texter here who asked a very good question. I presume they're a member of law enforcement. How are you going to convince more people to enter the profession of law enforcement who are also suited to serve, instead of bottom of the barrel hiring that lead to things like Memphis?
So I've talked to former chiefs, talked to officers. Some have left the force. They will tell me that the issue is actually not a pay rate for officers in our city. The issue is a lack of support from the mayor. They think our current mayor and will throw them under the bus the first chance he has. So having a mayor who will support our officers, will make sure they're better funded, and thus can hold them to a high standard is the key to doing better recruiting and having the officers we need in our city.
Andy Rougeot, I don't think this is the last time you and I are going to talk as we head through this. So the developing topic is one I'll follow up with you offline about. But, man, my thanks for you coming on the air here to talk about this. We'd love to be a vehicle for a better discussion about what's going on in Denver. It's just too consequential of a city to shrug it off. Thanks for taking on this challenge.
Thanks for having me, George. And if people want to learn more, they can go to andyfordenver.com.
Can you repeat that 2 more times?
Sure. If people would like to learn more, they can go to andyfordenver.com. We've got our released Fight for Denver's Future plan on there. It's talking about how we're going to fight crime, homelessness, cost of housing, and support our economy in Denver.
And 4 is FOR, not the number.
That's correct.
andyfordenver.com. Andy Rougeot, good luck, man. Keep fighting the good fight out there, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you, George.
Hey, listen, we're going to cut away for a break. I want to get some reactions. There's a bunch of texters in here. What are your thoughts? What did you hear there from Andy? And is it possible for someone with conservative values and that kind of a background and that idea for Denver, can they win in Denver? Is that possible? I want to believe the answer is yes. We haven't had someone like that in office in a long, long time. But before we cut away, I want to tell you about another superstar. And frankly, this guy's got to end up in political office somewhere, but I don't want this to be a campaign ad for him. His name is Dan Kaplis. He is a former boss of mine. I worked for Dan 15, 16 years ago. Started there with a guy named Babar Wahid, who is now like Dan's long-term serving partner. And the two of them, since I've left the firm, and please don't hold that against me, have just blown that thing up. And all they do, and this is simple, all they do are find people who have been victims of other people or companies, and they go and champion their cause in court to try to find a way to put their life back on a right track. Someone hurts you or a loved one, negligence, recklessness, sometimes even intentional conduct. It doesn't matter. If it's a single driver of a car, a trucking company, or something else, even like the escalators. Remember when those went bad in Coors Field? You know who those victims called? They called Dan Kaplis. And the reason they do that is they know that this guy isn't going to rush to just go make a buck for himself. This guy only cares about maximizing your recovery because he knows that that's the only thing that can get you close to putting your life back together. I worked for him for 2 years, and I tell you, I never once heard this guy say, let's just quickly take that. I've never heard words like that. I've never heard him say anything like, well, I'd love to do this on this case, but we can't afford it. It's just not how the guy works. What he works on is being the best champion for the little guy against the big guy. And that big guy invariably are insurance companies. And Dan's track record speaks for itself. And I mean, you can look it up. I've talked about it a million times. But here, don't just take my word for it. Go out there and check out the webpage, dankapleslaw.com, Kaplis with a C, dankapleslaw.com. But the better thing to do, and it costs you nothing to do it, pick up the phone and call 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. That's dankapleslaw.com. When we come back, your text, your calls at our number, and you call it 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Can Denver be saved? Did you hear what Andy said? Is that going to work? Do you support it? 303-696-1971. George Brockler on the George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
the words are too good to this song. If you have not heard The Killers, somebody told me you need to listen to it. It's that's good stuff, Billy. Nice work. George Brockler back with you here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. My thanks to a guy named Andy Rougeot, spelled like and pronounced like Peugeot. Andy, I thought was going to come across as insane because who else would run for mayor of Denver right now? I mean, that's like somebody screaming, hey, this thing's on fire. Here, hold on to it. And this guy's reaching into the fire to pull it out. I don't know. I'm pretty impressed. I'd love to get your feedback on him at 303-696-1971. Had some texts come in too. There are folks out there, by the way, and I got text on this too. I think the most explosive part of that thing wasn't just Andy's common sense ideas towards fixing the Queen City of Colorado. It's this notion that crack smoke crazy Denver has figured out a way to use taxpayer money to pay people to run for office. This idea of a 9-to-1 match. Are you kidding me? And somebody sent me in some of the language of this thing. 9-to-1 match. They have $8 million set aside to match, and with no regulations on how the money gets spent. If you have candidates paying themselves, I'll be honest, pretty sure Billy and I are running for mayor of Denver after today because I need to supplement my radio income with taxpayer funding. Who doesn't want to do that? I might encourage every listener to go out there and start running for office. All you need to do is to come up with $1,000 to make another 9. Are you kidding me? You'd be a fool not to run for mayor of Denver. Do I have to live there, Billy?
No, not at all. In fact, I am going to proudly announce I'm going to be running as the Silly Walk candidate.
Silly Walk?
Yes, just from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the Department of Silly Walks. That's what it is. I am going to mandate that we need to have more silly walking around town. Yes, it's going to be a completely and ridiculous campaign, but it's not really about winning. It's about the money.
I'm going to run on the promise that if elected, I will resign. And that way I don't actually have to move into Denver because like Andy, I care about the safety of my children.
You have thought about this on a level that I'm jealous of. This is good.
It's like the LBJ, but after the fact. Remember how he was like, I will not seek, nor will I accept. I will run, but then I'll resign. And all I need is the 9-to-1 match. I mean, that's better than the stock market, man. Maybe we ought to turn Alpine Planning onto this.
Oh, yeah.
Invest in the mayoral race in Denver. This is genius. Now, listen.
We could start a GoFundMe and we could retire.
I really hope you said fund. I was talking right over you. I'm so sorry. Listen, we have a line open at 303-696-1971, but I do want to honor the callers because that's what makes this show unique in the Denver market. We talk to people. Mary Lou, you're on 710. What are your thoughts, Mary Lou?
Hi, good morning, George. I was driving in my car and I heard this Andy person, and I'll tell you, I like him, and I'll tell you why. He's getting down to basics. And anytime anything's failing, whether it be a family, a church, a business, a city, a country, we have to get down back to basics. And that's what I feel about him.
Mary Lou, is there any chance your last name is Rougeot? Like, I love my son, or something like that. Mary Lou,
no.
Do you live in Denver?
Yeah, I sure do.
How long have you lived there?
79 years.
Sweet mother of goodness. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to St. Joseph High School.
Now, you have been in Denver for a long, long time, longer than I have, maybe by a couple years. Tell me what you have seen change about your city. I mean, there are very few residents of Denver who can claim the history with the city that you can. What have you seen change, and why has it happened?
Oh boy, that's good. Yeah. So, so I was raised, in the 40s and 50s, and there was morals. I guess I don't know. People just have went to the left too far.
Why is that, though? Why has
Denver
shifted so far to the left, Mary Lou? Because, listen, I grew up in Lakewood, right there to the west of Denver. My folks worked in Denver for decades. I used to go into town all the time to see them, hang out with them, do stuff. And I don't remember the city ever being as bad as it is right now for the issues that Andy discussed. Why did it happen? Why has it shifted so hard to the left?
Well, because of who we choose to run. That's one thing, number one. And number two, because people have taken God out of the city.
So you think it's a faith issue?
Well, that's the big part, yes.
Well,
and we choose wrong candidates.
We've had now, I think, I can't remember for sure, 24 years of Hickenlooper Hancock, right? Did Hickenlooper serve 3 terms or just 2? I can't remember, but I know Hancock served 3.
I know.
That's about 24 years of 2 guys running the show. That's about a third of the time that you have been in Denver. It seems to me that under those last 2 mayors, we've seen the greatest change in Denver, and there have been economic surges. I mean, it was a great place to go for tech and a whole bunch of other things. And then all of a sudden we seem to be cratering on a lot of levels. Faith may be part of it. There are policy changes there, and I hope they're reversible, that have led us here. Why is it so hard for Denver to right the ship?
Well, I don't think enough good people are standing up, to be very honest with you. We get too busy and we get into our own lives, and we say, oh, well, I'm okay. You know, it hasn't hit me yet. And we just really need to stand up for righteousness and for truth, because we're living a big lie.
Mary Lou, given the fact that there's a 9-to-1 taxpayer funded match, are you now considering running for mayor? Because
yes, I'm retired and I sure could use a few more bucks.
I'm telling you, you could, if you just raised $1,000, the city gives you another $9,000. Are you kidding? And they'll do it up to $50. I mean, this is a retirement plan. I mean, you can't do this well in the stock market, Mary Lou.
I know. Where do I sign up?
In fact, let's just launch the campaign right here. Tell us what your platform would be.
You know what? I'm with Andy. I mean, let's just be harder on crime. Let's support the police. Let's get it safe. See, I have great grandchildren, and I am very, very fearful for them. So if you're a family person, if you've got any care and love in your heart at all, or any family members, you'll just do what's right for them. Let's just think of them, okay? If you can't think of anyone else, let's think of them, and then that would go for all the people in Denver.
Now, Mary Lou, it sounds like we know that you're supportive of Andy, that you like what you heard, you like the idea of the platform. I want to believe that Denver can go that direction. But in your heart of hearts, Mary Lou, can a guy like Andy, a veteran, a small business owner, a family man, and someone who believes in public safety, can a person like that be elected in Denver today?
No.
I was really hoping you were going to vote with your heart there, but that's my worry.
No.
And it has nothing to do with Andy or his campaign. It has to do with the place he's running.
This is true. This is true. And I hate to say no. I really do. But let's just get serious. I mean, no, I don't think so. But I'm still got hope. I still have hope.
Well, Mary Lou, thank you for the phone call and getting us kicked off on that topic. I do too. And call in again. It doesn't have to be about the mayor. I just want to hear your opinion. You sound like you're pretty smart and well-informed. I like it. Mary Lou, thank you for the call. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break, and then we'll take your calls at 303-696-1971. Is it possible for a mayor to save Denver? And if so, can Andy win? And again, not because he isn't qualified. It sounds like he's incredibly qualified. It's not because he doesn't hold the common sense position. Of course he holds it. Can somebody like that win in a place like Denver? 303-696-1971. Let me tell you something that you can do for your body. I spoke with these folks yesterday. Pretty exciting stuff. And I'll tell you why on a couple levels. But I'm talking about the folks at QC Kinetics. These are the folks that deal with the regenerative medicine that keeps you from having to go under the blade, under the knife. I hate the idea of being cut open. And in fact, I would go seek a second opinion if somebody said, my recommendation is surgery. And no knock on the orthopedic surgeons out there. Those guys are like the jocks of the medical world. I mean, they have ultimate confidence. They do magical things. But it's like that hammer thing. If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I always worry that their go-to is cut you open to fix things like joint pain and other stuff like that. QC Kinetics offers you that alternative, that second opinion. And so if you've had a recommendation to solve some joint pain, even like carpal tunnel stuff, things going on in the wrist, the knees, the shoulders, the ankles, before you agree and sign on the line and let somebody put you under and start doing all this, reach out to the good folks at QC Kinetics. And here's why. The regenerative treatment, the medicines that they offer, it involves your own body, healing your own body. And what that means is no downtime. It means the rehabilitation piece, the getting back to normal piece, takes place that much more quickly. Don't put it off any longer. It doesn't cost you anything to have the conversation. I asked the people from QC that we talked to yesterday, I'm like, look, what's your sweet spot? And she's like, I couldn't believe she said that. She goes, in that 52, 53 and older. I'm like, what? That's me. So now I am looking for something on my body that I'm thinking, is that going to fail? Is my knee going to fail? What I love is that they offer the alternative to the surgery. Give them a call. That's the way to do it. Have the free conversation. 303-900-8986. 303-900-8986. And I'm going to give it to you one more time because website won't do it justice. You got to have the conversation. 303-900-8986. 303-900-8986. That's QC Kinetics. And then after you do it, reach out to us and let us know how awesome it was. That's what we're hearing from the testimonials. You become one of them. George Brockler on the George Show will be back with your calls, your texts right after this. It's 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
It is it be me, some version of those words. George Brocca right back with you here on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Some of the texts, and I think this really speaks to something I want to explore. Someone said you and Billy could give each other the $1,000 nice and easy. I love the idea. I think the way the rules are, and somebody sent me some of these things, and I promise you I'm going to look into this because I feel like I could make some good money. It says that it's got to be up to $50 increments. So it really is saying if you get a whole bunch of small donors, we'll make those small donations into big ones. So if you can get a bunch of $50 donors, each $50 donation, it looks like is worth another $450. I'm going to look into this and I'll tell you my scheme. I'm going to tell you my plan here. If I can figure out a way to run for mayor of Denver without actually living in Denver, and I do not live in Denver, I'm going to run and or think strongly about it. And then throw my hat in the ring for the public financing, and we're going to figure out a way to raise money for a good cause. And in my mind, I feel like that good cause is to help pay to demeth the libraries in Denver. I know there's one in Arvada that had the same issue, but it feels like we could do some real good here and redirect tax money towards a legitimate public service instead of paying candidates to run for office. I'm also going to look and see how many of these candidates, and I think it's got to be publicly reported, are taking taxpayer money. Who the hell runs for office and pays themselves to run for office? And as soon as I ask that question out loud, I think in terms of candidates the GOP has had, named Mays and others, it seems completely unethical to me. Oh, you know who else did that? Remember our new congressperson from the 8th Congressional District, Caraveo. She paid herself out of campaign contributions. Now, not matching funds, and that makes it different. Still offensive, still unethical in my opinion, but not nearly as offensive as asking the taxpayers to fund your campaign and then saying, thank you, I'm going to cut myself a check to keep me afloat while I do God's work here and run for mayor of Denver. I would love to exploit this law, and I want to be clear that's exactly what I'd be trying to do, is exploit this law, because the public financing of campaigns is stupid. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if there's a way to highlight for taxpayers what a fool's errand this whole thing is, and that's my other question to you, is Andy's run for mayor a fool's errand? I mean, I like what I hear from this guy. I love the background, man, especially a veteran, guy who's been a combat deployer. Come on, man. Isn't that the kind of person you want in an executive level position who's making decisions about things like, oh, I don't know, how to keep the community safe? Because right now, folks, it isn't. Not by really any measurable metric. You know, we saw that article in the Denver Gazette that you did that Denver saw a slight downturn in homicides over the last year. Yay. But remember, they were up by like 20 or 30% over the preceding few years. So we see a little bit, we're not anywhere near what normal should be here. I mean, I think we were, according to the Common Sense Institute report, I think we're at some kind of 40-year high on homicides out of Denver. And that's just the completed act. Remember, the attempted murders are probably a bigger telltale sign of how bad violent crime is. And we got to get to the bottom of that, because advances in medicine have been such that people that would have died 20 years ago are living on. So the murder rate, yeah, that's something. But the attempt murder rate is probably a bigger tell as to what's going on with violent crime. It's craziness. I like the idea that someone is still willing to run, invest some of their own funds. I love the backstory too. I started a small business doing some kind of repair work on the garage doors for storage units, and then grew it from 12 to 50 employees. Doesn't that sound like a guy who's got the background that you want? Other folks that are running, and I'm not to disparage any of them, don't have a private sector background like that. There are candidates who have been in government for over a decade who are just interested in being government. Do you know there's a candidate out there, and I want to confirm this. This is the rumor. The rumor is that their deputy campaign manager is the former head of the Colorado ACLU, who was cut loose from the ACLU. I don't know if it was fired or it was mutual agreement, but left the ACLU because she was even too radical for them. That person, this is the rumor, has been promised the manager of public safety job. What? The head of the I Hate Cops ACLU is going to be the head of the public safety department in Denver if a certain person gets elected? Please tell me how that's going to solve the public safety issue in Denver. Somebody's got to tell me how someone who's the head of the ACLU is going to make Denver safer. And you talk about problems with recruiting and retention of officers. You make the boss of the chief of police somebody who has spent a career disparaging, criticizing police officers, the head of public safety. Why in the world would you stay with the Denver Police Department? What possible hope can you have for a work environment that's conducive towards public safety, or at least respecting what you do on the road? This is utter craziness. Here's someone, Yo George, you gonna demeth the light rail too? Used to ride it to work downtown, never again for that very reason. Depending upon how much money we can earn for this theoretical run for Denver mayor, yes. Here's one. Can't you claim you live on the streets of Denver? I think it's elitist to require a candidate to have an address. What is you or a homeless person wants to run? And oh, by the way, you don't actually have to live there. What we saw with people like some of the Democrat electeds, Kyle Mullica and others, you can just pretend to go live at mom's house or some other resident in Denver just for the purposes of running for office. And the courts say that's okay. That's enough. Someone else on the hyphenated name of Payton, funny, but I consider that native to my state. Denver will hire the absolute worst person for mayor. Unfortunately, Andy has no chance. I'd rather have Tubbs run than you. What? That is crack smoke crazy. If I have to run against Stephen Tubbs, I'll do it. And frankly, that would be a hell of a campaign. I'm going to reach out to Stephen and find out. Stephen, if you're listening to this on the podcast, one, why? But two, answer the question, are you now or will you ever be willing to run for mayor of Denver? You talk about Denver and Decay. This dude could come in and fix that too. But I really think Andy has a chance. I just don't know how great a chance that is. I want to believe it's something significant. Now, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut away for a break. And then when we come back, we're going to be joined by Francoise Bergen. Francoise is longtime member of the Aurora City Council and part of that reform movement that has taken over. And there is some reform going on, folks. I don't know if you read it in the Denver Gazette. They had a great piece on this thing, but things are changing in Aurora, and I want to talk to her about the how and the why. It's a new story. It's an ongoing story. So we're not going to be able to have the full conversation we want to have because we're just now going to get caught up to speed on this. And then we'll lighten the load through the rest of the 9 o'clock hour. Stick around and listen. I got to tell you, I don't think we've had Francoise on before. We've had a lot of Danielle. We've had a lot of the Beard. We've had a lot, of course, of Dustin Zvonek. Francoise is a mover and shaker and a quiet leader out there on the city council. She's going to make us smarter about this when we come back. I invite you to stick around for what will be another story you may not be tracking, but you should. Aurora, they got it going on. Denver, I don't know. George Brockler on The George Show, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today. Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Well, it's only a little coincidental, perhaps ironic, that the shape of you becomes the bumper music, because I got a text that was a whole lot of white skin. I presume, once again, I've moved or done something on camera that has revealed the fact that I am whiter than alabaster. I am very, very pale. George Brockler back with you here on 710 KNUS. Something that I intended to do in the last segment, but I didn't, was to tell you about Mitch Floria. And you've heard me talk about Mitch before, but I want to remind you that in this day and age, as you look at your house and think, I don't know if we're prepared to move. And frankly, I love the neighborhood. I love the house. I just want to update the house. I just want it to look like a new house without having to go through the selling and the buying and all that other stuff. Single best way to do that is by upgrading your countertop in your kitchen and in your master bathroom. And you know that's true because it's the single biggest eye-catching thing there. Between that and the cabinets, man, the counter's pretty big deal. And it's where you spend all your time with the family. Upgrade that thing. And if you're thinking about it, of all the choices that are out there, our choice, our guy, is Mitch Floria. And there's a couple good reasons for it. One, dude is a legal immigrant to this country from communist-controlled Romania who came here with the American dream in his heart and in his DNA and has started a business, started a family, and it's blown up. And not just because of the product, but the service. And so I'm telling you, man, that this guy right now, and you got to do this today. You call today. You make a deal today with him. And frankly, I don't think the phone call's enough. I think you got to physically go out there. You get 20% off of labor. 20% off of labor, or you get a kitchen sink or a bathroom sink thrown in with your countertop package. Who does stuff like that? Mitch Floria, because he ain't just about the bucks. He's about the relationship. He's about the community. So you got to go check this guy out. And frankly, I think you drive out to his place at the corner of about 6th Avenue and in Colfax I-70 area. He can do anything. Granite, quartz, marble, fill in the blank. But you got to call him today to get that deal. If you go in and see him, you're going to close the deal with him. That's Mitch Floria. You can find him at theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com, or give him a call on his phone, on his hip, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. Now, listen, I had teased that we were going to have Françoise Bergen on, and I just spoke to her on the phone. She's totally ready to go. But here's the deal. For reasons that are beyond everyone on the planet's control except the radio gods, I got to punch out at about 9:10. And I thought to myself, there's, at least for this segment, there's no chance that it's fair to have a conversation about this super cool topic. And I'll tell you where you can get prepped for it. Denver Gazette has done a fantastic an article called Aurora Council Debates ARPA Nonprofit Grants. And it's about how the old city council had approved a whole bunch of spending on nonprofits that has to be approved. These contracts have to be approved and ratified by this current city council. And the current city council has looked at the money and said, I'm not sure that's a wise, smart, or prudent way to spend those taxpayer dollars. And so things are changing with some of these grants. It's been a little bit controversial with some on the council. I want to have that conversation. This is a city council who has it right. Right. On the one hand, you have the Denver City Council saying jaywalking is legal as people wander into traffic like it's some sort of zombie apocalypse Netflix movie. And then you have Aurora saying, how can we make taxpayer money spend better and go farther? How can we take less of it? How can we improve services? How can we decrease motor vehicle theft and retail theft in the city of Aurora? I mean, you are looking at two cities that touch, but they are a universe apart. And I want to have that conversation with Françoise Bergen, who's on the Aurora City Council. She's one of the senior members there, and she's just a quiet leader. I mean, she just gets it done behind the scenes. Everybody likes her, and we're going to get her on the radio, not for the last time either, but this thing is a hot topic. Go check it out at the Denver Gazette. Now, I wanted to talk about another thing with you. I'll tease it for tomorrow as well, because we got some good stuff coming up that's just more lifestyle stuff. And that is, there is a tax foundation report based on this recent IRS data. Now there's a lag, right? So they can only go forward to 2020. But some of the things that they've talked about here, I'm just going to tease you with this, is that the top 1% income share rose from 20.1% to 22.2%. That's their share of the income tax. The top 50% of all taxpayers, that's you and me, folks, paid 97.7% of all federal individual income taxes. That means that about 50% of America ain't paying it. They all get the same ballot you and I get. What does that bode for the future? We're going to talk more about this probably tomorrow as well, but I cannot cut away from this segment without telling you about another superstar in their field, especially in light of the fact that we are coming up on Valentine's Day. I think I'm going to have to take a trip out here too for this very reason. Valentine's Day, loved one, someone that you care about, you want to do something special and you want to do more than just the candy hearts and the chocolates and roses, which are great. How about custom jewelry at a price that you can make sense? Now listen, right now, and today only, this thing runs out today, 20% off of all the sterling silver stuff there at Littleton Fine Jewelry. Littleton Jewelry is so easy to get to. You don't just go to the website. The website is like the appetizer, right? You go to littletonfinejewelry.com, but get in the car and drive out and see Jesse and his team. They're just south the Hudson Gardens. Turn right at the jewelry repair sign. That's Littleton Fine Jewelry. Listen, that does it for us for a very short first segment. I promise we'll come back. We're going to talk about some lifestyle stuff for sure. Stick around. It's me, George Brockler, on The George Show. You're listening to 710 KNUS.